Once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. I'm Daniel. Thank you guys for tuning in. I see quite a few new folks here, so I want to thank those that are coming on from Monks channel. I appreciate you guys coming over, so thank you so much. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Tonight, we're going to be going back into the Nancy Guthrie abduction and kind of just brainstorm with a special new guest that we're going to have on the channel for the first time ever. And I just recently found him probably about a month ago. I'm super impressed with his work. You know, I think he's very detailed oriented. And I think a lot of the stuff that he comes out with is rooted and based in proof and facts. And he has an explanation for it. And so without further ado, well, actually, I think I see him. He stepped away. So we'll bring it back on here in a second. Without further ado, let's bring in our special guest, Monks Intrigue. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Daniel? Hello to everybody. I actually tried to get Toki to stay in one place, but it didn't work out. That's why I was vanished for a second there. But yeah, how are you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing great, my man. You know, I think it's like I said, I like what you do. You're very detail oriented. You know, is that something that you've always been? You know, you notice these little things, and I find it impressive because I like to think of myself as a person that notices little details. And so you've impressed me quite a bit. Have you always been known to notice the small things?
This is something very interesting. Of course, I personally don't think of myself as detailed, even though I probably am. But it was Chris McDonough that pretty much dissected my personality on the time that I was on the interview room, and he said that because I am an artist, I actually do oil painting. I went to school for that, and he says that's where you get your detailing from. And I go, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. And that's all I have.
Well, that's awesome, my man. I'd like to see some of your work. Now, you've transitioned into true crime. You've been covering the Nancy Guthrie case. I've been watching a lot of your videos. You know, there's been some recent news and updates with the ransom notes and things of that nature. Some of the updates that I've heard is that, at least through sources, is that law enforcement isn't very close on finding a suspect. Do you kind of feel the same way? Do you feel that this is a case that is going colder, or do you think that we're maybe just around the corner from something happening?
I tend to believe that we're just around the corner, because there's times where I can't believe that they aren't seeing. I should speak for myself. They aren't seeing the things that I see. I will say that there are things that I've correlated that I feel are a bit too damning to share, but it also could be just my opinion or whatnot. And I just can't believe FBI, at least, hasn't seen the same things, if they're looking at the same things that we're looking at. And yeah, I guess I do believe something's going on. And of course, on July 2nd, Derek Kalela goes to that, what is it, the change hearing, where he's going to change his plea. that might be very interesting, or it could also be nothing. So I guess I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, so am I. I think that's going to be interesting as well. Him changing his plea. Do you think there's more to that? It kind of seems like
There's possible. It's possible because of course everybody goes in and their lawyer suggests to you to plead not guilty, just so that they could dilly-dally and waste time, and maybe they could find some proof, or maybe they could make up some proof that is plausible, whatever. So everybody pleads not guilty in the beginning, and then when it comes down to it, if there's no avenues of escape, I should say, then they plead guilty. But I hear that there was a plea agreement, whatever that is. I read that you have to offer them something worth reducing your sentence. And if people could fact check this, but I fact checked it twice, for what he is being charged for in this case, which is sort of like a fake ransom demand, right? That can be up to 20 years because he's using telecommunications or whatnot. And that is a pretty big charge. It's a federal case, right? So he is facing a lot of time possibly. So if he is to plead down that time, he's going to have to give them something really juicy. And if it has anything to do with the Nancy Guthrie case, hey, we're all here for it. We don't got much more time to wait for that. That's a week away. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. And if it comes out to be nothing, then it's nothing. But hopefully we can touch on Kalela again a little bit later, because he is one of the more compelling characters in this case amongst all these crazy characters, right? This is like a soap opera written by a bad author, to be honest. And just because it's real and it's happening in front of our eyes, it's cinema. But if this was a movie, you'd fire the writer right now. Yeah,
it's pretty weird. The only thing about the whole plea deal stuff is, like, if there was one accepted, it's typically after they've done whatever it is that they're going to do. Like, for instance, if you had like a guy in prison and he wanted to get a lighter sentence or something like that, that wouldn't happen until after he testified, against that person in court, so if it's a situation where you have somebody already in prison, let's just say they're going to give up a location or something and they're going to plead out for that, they typically got to give up the location first. They got to go out there, find whatever it is that they're finding, and then the plea deal will be accepted. And so if that's the case in this one, I would assume, just my assumption, that it's most likely a plea deal so that he get a lighter sentence without going to trial. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Of course, he has to prove what it is that he's offering, right? That's pretty much what you're trying to say. Yeah. Makes sense. So, yeah, I guess nobody should hold their breath for July 2nd, because he could just come and go and he just winds up in jail. Nothing happens. I do believe he is an interesting character, and we talked about him on my channel a long time ago, and I called it the catch-22 theory, where why would he give himself up in this situation? Because he's going to get life, right? If he gives himself up or gives somebody else up, and he's pretty much directly involved in, say, Nancy's death, then there's no plea deal to plead down life in prison, right? So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Now, you mentioned the beginning. I like to go back to the beginning. Let's pull up the timeline of events. And so that night, we're going to start off with January 31st, 2026. Nancy travels to a local family home. 9:48, the family drops off. I think now everybody knows that was Tommaso. Drops her off. Garage door opens. Garage door closes 2 minutes later. An assumption for that period of time is that my assumption is that person most likely walked her in for the garage door to take that long of a time period. I would also assume if that's the case, that Tommaso probably has access to open the garage door. If Nancy's inside the house already and he assisted her and he's leaving, I mean, I guess maybe he can hit the button, run, and jump over the laser. But what do you
Jump
think?
over the laser. Given that there is a timestamp for this garage, I have a garage too, and I don't have timestamps or an app for it. It's one of the older models.
Right.
But for the fact that they got a timestamp from this garage, I could assume that it's a smart garage. So you can get an app for these kinds of garages nowadays, and you can just hit it on your phone and open the garage from anywhere you want. So they didn't even have to be on the property. But if you don't mind, I want to rewind just a little bit. We're going to take it back to when Nancy calls the Uber, and I feel it's important to know where the Uber driver actually picked Nancy up, because there's been a lot of talk, and there's people that say, okay, we prefer the garage as opposed to the front door. And I learned that a lot of people do prefer the garage, but the point is, what did Nancy prefer? So depending on where the Uber driver picked her up at, that would be her, I would assume, her preference of entering and leaving her house. I'm not 100% convinced yet that Nancy would want to be dropped off at her garage, given that there is a slope just before her garage, and she has to do an 8-inch step to get into the house. So just saying that's why I feel if the Uber driver picked her up at her front walkway, that might give us an indication that the garage opening and closing could be a red herring of some sort. Okay. And now there's this narrative that I feel we can debunk, and that is that Nancy never left Annie's house. And we're just going to go through it step by step, and I think we can understand. And I'm going to be asking you questions. Okay.
Go ahead.
Nancy has a cell phone. That's a fact. Nancy's cell phone can be triangulated with cell towers. Do you believe that's 100% guaranteed that the detectives are going to do just that and follow Nancy's cell phone at those timestamps?
Oh, I think they're going to do better than that. They got the GPS. So they have her GPS and that GPS chip. So the triangulation aspect, especially out there, is not going to be very accurate. But once you get the phone and you get the GPS chip, you're going to have down to 3 meters. And what you also have is you have her pacemaker on the phone. So as long as those things are connected, you can argue that she is connected to the phone, and wherever the phone goes, she is going.
Perfect. That's exactly the answer I wanted. Now with the GPS chip, I love that piece of information. I'm still going with old school triangulation, but you mentioning that, we can add that to the theory. My cat is chewing on all wires right now. So if I cut out, it is Toki's fault. She's back here. Anyways, leave her to her own devices. Just leave my devices alone. Cat, come on, keep going. All right. she's looking at something else, but okay. So like you said, wherever Nancy's phone goes, Nancy is going. Her pacemaker is still connected to her watch. Her watch is still connected to her phone. And if that strays from the narrative of, say, Annie and Tommaso would be in hot water already. Given that they're not, Nancy made it home that night. And no, I'm not going to say anymore. We'll just leave that up to the imagination. So Nancy is at home. The garage opens and closes at 9:48, closes at 9:50. And like I mentioned before, the point of contention would be where Nancy would actually prefer to be dropped off. Okay, so according to Tommaso, she's dropped off and he watches her go. I'm trying to think of Nanos's wording. Family saw her in the house. We could take that for whatever that means. Either he watched her go in the house or he walked her into the house and saw her in the house. So we'll just leave that to everybody to figure out themselves. Okay, so Nancy is in the house, and this is where the mystery begins. Okay, so everything else, if we are to believe that the cell phone tells the story, Nancy's devices tells the story, Nancy is at home at 10 p.m. Between 10 p.m. and 1:47 a.m. is a mystery. So at 1:47, the doorbell camera disconnects. Now, how you would explain this, I'm not sure, depending on your theory. I would explain it as a signal jammer, that because of the adjacent neighbor having their camera go out at a similar time.
I'm in the same boat as you, my man. That's
okay, great. Great. I came on here for a reason, for someone to be on the same wavelength. But so yeah. I'm thinking that signal jammer is in the car, because these things are pretty big. They're like the size of a backpack, and it heats up like no other. So keep that in the car. There's a 200 feet radius for a medium grade one. And you can get that off the black market. And as of recent, I think the Interview Room just did a piece on how, I guess, I wouldn't say it's abject poverty, but there's something going on in Pima County that's not very wholesome. There's people doing drugs on the streets or whatnot, right? A lot of disenfranchised people over there. So because of that, I think I'm losing my train of thought after I mentioned that. So,
well, we were talking about him having a jammer. Now, this image here, and I think this is pretty big, because I strongly suspect that he parked the suspect parked at the at Nancy's garage. Okay. I've talked to a few people that have been out there. If he would have parked anywhere in that driveway, that vehicle would have been very visible. And not even if he parked off to the side, not visible from the doorbell camera, but from the street, that the only part that has a lot of brush is right there. And I'll pull it up here in a second. But this camera here, I went back and I was looking at some drone footage. This camera faces Nancy's garage.
Yeah. That camera exists.
Yeah, and this camera was up. This was on the drone footage. There's part of the solar panel, and like I said, this points to that area. Now, let me pull up the video of oh boy walking up real quick, because I think it's pretty, in my opinion, it's pretty obvious which direction he's coming from. You know what? I'll do the still images. It'll be easier so I can zoom in. So this is the very first step that the suspect takes onto the sidewalk. This right here, this thing is the stepping stone. There's another one over here, and it's only 4 steps until he's onto the porch area. So this is the first one right along the border. The second step, as you can see, the first one is still along the border. The second step is a little bit closer. Third step, and then fourth step crosses the median of the sidewalk. So this person is coming from this direction. So these are the stepping stones. His first step is right here. So he's coming from this direction. And so probably from the window. If you were to look at from here, and this is where I think he parked, by the way, there's a big rock wall here. At night, there's no way he's going to be able to, walk up this to go that direction. He has to be coming from here. Mm-hmm. There's no way, because if he comes around this direction, he's walking now in the, coming this direction here, and he's going to get caught on camera way further this way. And I don't think he's going to be like, I don't think he's coming up here to trail this way to come back. That doesn't make any sense.
He's not going to do that.
So yeah, he's definitely coming from the left side here. And that camera's right here. How does it not pick up his vehicle? How does it not pick up him walking? There was the back door and the side gate, in my opinion, were left open. There's a let me see if I have it here. There's a pot back there. that's open. I think I have it right here, actually. So this pot right here, which was picked up, law enforcement picked up this empty pot. People are creatures of habit. It was an empty pot that held the back door open as well. And so I would think he's using the same stuff. And then this one disappears. And this is right next to that gate. I think his plan was always the back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my question was, why the hell is he coming up in the front anyways? You know, I always thought it was a show. I thought it was always a show. It was always an act.
Yes,
What do you
I
think?
do believe. Yeah, I believe it was a show as well. Now that camera that you just showed us, the thing is, does that camera work? You know, sometimes we just
That's true.
could be out of battery. Maybe there wasn't enough sunlight. It's attached to a solar panel, so if it's drained and you don't physically go up there with like a alternate power source, then that thing is dead. So we don't know if that camera is actually working, but that also leads to a very interesting question. How does this guy know that it's not working? Because if he's brave enough to go over there and park where you think he parked, he doesn't seem to have a problem being on that camera. That camera is white. You can see it. And here's the thing. He broke the flood lamps, which is pretty high up. So he probably picked up something, maybe a rod of some sort, broke the floodlights in Nancy's backyard. He can use that same rod and break that camera. I mean, he's thought enough to break the front door camera. Why isn't he just jumping a little bit and breaking that camera? It almost feels like he knows that camera does not work. So why bother?
He's caught on one. He's caught on one. After, if we were to believe this timeline, which I'll be honest with you, I really don't. But if we were to believe this timeline that at 1:47 he disconnects the doorbell camera, my biggest problem, and I'll ask you this real quick, what is the importance of the 140 of telling the public that 1:47 is when the doorbell camera disconnects? What do you think is the importance there?
If we already know that 212 it detects a person, first I think
it establishes what time that the person got there.
Right.
Right.
It does establish that. And if me and you are on the same page of the Wi-Fi jammer, signal jammer, then him just rolling up is going to disconnect that doorbell. So from the Wi-Fi base. So 1:47, he rolls up with his Wi-Fi jammer. That's what disconnects the doorbell. But a Nest camera is very unique in a lot of ways. For one, it has internal storage, even if you didn't buy it. It just comes like that. And it also, now I heard you mention something very interesting yesterday with Coffin Daffer, and that was that the Nest doorbell, if someone is watching, will blink. I never knew that. That's an awesome fact. So you said that the guy standing on the porch, which possibly might be the same night, might not be, was looking at it to see if it would blink, to see if Nancy was checking who was at the front door, and he realizes that no one is. And if it's the same night, now he goes and straps up, right, his backpack, his crotch holster, whatever, and then he comes back and does what he does. So,
well, let's look at this picture real quick. I think what he's doing here is he's prepared to run. Look at the position of his hands relative to his legs. He's got his left foot forward and his left hand forward. You don't walk that way. So this isn't mid stride. This isn't, anything like that. This is the only time you ever put the same leg forward and the same arm forward is if you're prepared to run. And so most people, when they're prepared to run, what do? Grab whatever they're wearing, whether it's shorts or pants, from the thighs, pick them up. I think that's why we're seeing more of the shoe exposed. It's because he lifted it up, ready to run. He's got the front, he's got his right or his left, which I think he's left-handed, which is why, we can go through that as well, but I think he's left-handed. He has his left foot forward and his left hand forward, ready to turn probably to run back to the right or to the left of this screen to his right to get out of there. I think the vehicle is parked there. I think he's standing there prepared. I mean, look at the knee, the bendage of the knee. When you see him walking, he doesn't bend his knees like that either. This is him prepared to move. And so I think he's watching the Nest camera to see if somebody picks up, because it's true. The Nest camera will blink green. I mean, it'll be green, solid. If somebody, once it starts to record, if somebody picks up the live feed, it starts to blink. And so I think that's what he's waiting on.
But that opens up another can of worms in that scenario, in the sense that, why does he know that? Right.
That's
so he's a techie, right? Or
well,
yeah.
I mean, that was the question that I came up with too. I was like, who would know that? There's three people I would think know that. One, somebody who owns one.
Right.
Two, somebody who is somebody who sells them. Or three, a competitor. Whether that's like, I don't know, somebody who goes installs, you know, I'm gonna call it drunk turkey surveillance cameras and services. I don't want to put anybody under the bus, but if I was an employee for DT Alarms and I went to your house and I'm like, oh, I noticed you have this Nest camera. That's cool. Did you know that if somebody comes up here and approaches us at the middle of the night and that alert doesn't wake you up, that they're gonna know that and they may enter your home? Our system don't do that. Our system is blah 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 blah. That's a selling point. And so
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at on that. What do you think?
I mean, there's a number 4 if you want.
What's the
it's
4?
an inside job.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, this person has been to Nancy's house before, and maybe he read the manual. You know, could be, like you said, the person who installed it might not be the actual company. It could be the person that helped her install it. I don't think Nancy's climbing her roof to install that driveway camera. Right? She had somebody install it. So
it's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. The only thing I go back to is that, do you think this 2:12 a.m. software detects a person on camera? Do you think that's the doorbell camera, or do you think that's a different camera?
That's the doorbell camera. I believe everything that this timeline is showing is the doorbell camera. It's the only camera that picked up anything. Yeah. So we don't even know if that driveway camera works. We don't know if the one they confiscated on top of the casita, we don't know if that works as well. Those are two cameras that is not easily recharged. On an overcast day, your camera is going to die if it's running on solar. We have one. I have to charge it physically with a brick every month or so. And if Nancy doesn't want to bother anybody and she's only using it to watch the javelinas, she doesn't really care that camera died. Now, this guy parking there, which I find very fascinating. That's a good theory, I believe, that you have, that of where he parked, but he didn't care about that camera. That's something to think about, I guess.
Well, I want to show you a little thing that we did. Myself and mainly Steve from True Crime Web. He's a former CSI investigator. He's actually going to be on the show this weekend. He's got some interesting theories on some stuff, but he put this together based on the FBI described the suspect as an average male build, about 5'9" to 5'10". So if we were to look at the positioning of the moon and relative to the width of the sidewalk at, let's just see, this is at 2:10 local time. The suspect is 72 inches tall, which is, what is that in feet? My math is really bad.
72.
Is that 6 foot?
That's over 6 foot, right?
It could be. My math is, I'm blanking out here, but
I think that's exactly 6 foot.
So at 212, it's 71 inches, which would be about 5'11".
Okay.
Right. At 212, 5'11". They anticipated this guy was about 5'11". If this was at 147, he would have been over 6'7". which is not possible because of they have him walking up there. Now, what he did was he measured the angle of the shadow with the width of the sidewalk and the time of day relative to where the moon was at that time, and that was the calculation that he came up with, is about 212 at 5'11", and then he confirmed it at the end with the position of the moon and the angle of the shadow.
That's amazing.
And so it would have had to have been between 212, 210, 214. Steve is in the building. Good to see you, Steve.
I agree. Good job, Steve.
And so we think, and I think this is super compelling, that this is definitely at this time. I do not believe this timeline here at 1:47 that the doorbell disconnects, and that being what we're seeing on the camera of him fumbling with the camera. I don't believe that to be the thing, because one, this gives a by them telling us this timeline, they're giving the illusion that this is around the time that he showed up, right? We've seen
Who's
a video.
giving the illusion? Daniel?
Law enforcement. Law enforcement is giving it's misdirection. I'm not going to lie. But my question was, why would they do that? And I've been asking that. Why would they do that? And I've been asking this for a minute. And the only thing I can think of is that they don't have much. And if somebody were to come forward, all right, what time did you get there? And what time did you disconnect the camera? And if they go, oh yeah, I got there around 1:45 and I disconnected it at 1:47, they know that the guy's, at least at that point, is not being truthful. Right. I mean, there's a lot of high profile cases where people come forward and false confess. And I think that these guys probably assume that this may be a long road ahead of us. And I also think that they don't have very much evidence. I've been saying that for a minute now, that they don't have enough.
Just to give a little bit of Nano's hate, I'm pretty sure everybody enjoys a little bit of Nano's hate. But if you remember those old conferences, he said at 212, software detects a person on camera. Could be an animal, could be anything. Why does he add stuff like that? Okay, that's my piece on Nanos. It's just to muddy up information. Why does he feel a need to offer things that doesn't help, really?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think the guy should step down. I don't think he's very good at what he's doing. I'm not saying that another sheriff in there, I never mind, I'm going to take that back. I do think another sheriff in there would have done a much better job given everything that occurred. But no, it's been a horrible thing. But to me, I was like, the thing is, if he didn't have a jammer, which I do think he did, because he's not seen on cameras. There was an investigation going on. People in the neighborhood were asked questions if they were having problems with their cameras that night. And apparently a few people were during the time that this occurred. And the other thing is, I don't think they have a picture of his vehicle. When you have Carlos's van, and you have Daly's Range Rover, most cameras in neighborhoods are facing the street so that you would catch the profile of the vehicle. You should be able to see that huge insignia on the side of Carlos's van. And so the fact that they searched that and Daly's car, I was like, man, I don't think they got a picture of the vehicle.
Well, if we're to go that route, we're talking about the Range Rover and Carlos's van. They're complete morons if they're using their own private vehicle to commit this crime, right? So if anything, it would be some type of unmarked vehicle, stolen possibly. I would think.
I mean, it's possible. That was one of the theories, like, because I covered the Idaho murders quite extensively. In fact, I had interviewed Steve Gonsalves, the father of Kaylee, one of the victims. And one of the things that a lot of people say was like, why would he take his own car? Why would he take his own car? And I was like, well, if you stole a vehicle, now there's two crimes you got to get away with. And if there's any evidence left at either one of them that points you in the direction of the especially of the other one, of the theft, and they find out that you're the one that stole the vehicle, etc., that's just going to point in your direction also much quicker as well. You could rent a vehicle, but renting a vehicle, that's one of the places that law enforcement are going to go look at right away. It's like, all right, if we had, like, for instance, in the Brian Koberger case, there was a white Elantra. They're going to go and see if there was any white Elantras that were rented out in the near past. And that's going to get caught because there's a paper trail there. Or you can borrow a vehicle. Now, in the Brian Koberger case, I was like, Brian Koberger didn't have any friends, and everybody that he knew was a PhD student trying to be a criminology in criminology. So these were wannabe guys that wanted to be police officers in the future. I don't think you're going to borrow a car from them and then, them not speak up about it when, their description of their vehicle comes forward. So in that scenario, he had no choice. In this one, it's a much bigger area. Tucson's a lot bigger, so maybe perhaps you can go out there, steal a vehicle, and commit this crime, and get away with it. So I do recognize that point. But do you think that that's what happened? Do you think they have a picture of the vehicle?
I don't think so. From what we know so far, I made a whole video called Phantoms because everybody that night seemed to be in a phantom vehicle. Tommaso taking Nancy home. Yeah. No. Well, at least they're not sharing it with us if they have it, but they don't seem to have any clue. They won't give us the route that he took. These things, if the family is not involved, it doesn't seem to impact the case if they're innocent, to let us know even how Annie and Tommaso got into the house. Why are they holding all this information secret? Right. And so the phantom car as well is if there was a getaway car, because we can't see any other avenue to escape with an 84-year-old woman besides maybe a SUV or minivan. Where are the cameras on people's doorsteps or whatnot? Something seeing something, and someone must own a Tesla somewhere. Those things are picking up things all the time. So very odd. So signal jammer, Daniel, like me and you believe, would answer that to a certain extent. So I would say.
Well, that would also talk to the, what type of person would have one of those. Again, we go back to the doorbell camera. Who would know about the blinking lights? Again, this kind of goes down to somebody who may be technical. And if the ransom notes are to be real, which I don't know, I'm on the fence when it comes to the ransom notes. To me, it's my initial thought was, if they're real, they're to throw somebody off.
Perfect.
I think it's just to throw somebody off. I don't think that you wait that long, to call or to leave a ransom somewhere. You involve the media, which is insane, if because now it becomes a spectacle. Now it becomes, everybody knows about this, not just law enforcement, but the public know about it. They're looking for certain things. People, the video I don't think was out at that point. And so, at that point, people may have had certain ideas of what was going on. And people may not have been on the lookout for people acting suspicious at that point. And so, to me, it just seemed like it was a weird thing to do for a ransom. What do you think about the ransom notes? Do you think they're solid? Do you think that, what are your thoughts about them?
Well, it's, I think like Savannah, like the FBI, they're taking maybe one or two of them very seriously. Now, I'm not one to think the other way, but the purpose of the letter is what I have a problem with. Okay, so if we're to take the little snippets that we've just learned about the ransom letter that came in, February 2nd, about Nancy perishing shortly after they took her, and that she's now buried in nature. The thing that ransom letter wants to convey, that we know for sure, is that Nancy is dead, right? The only thing that we know for sure in this case is that Nancy is gone. Everything else seems to be a puzzle. So if we know that, then we'll just go back to the wise words of Dr. Brucato. This is an elimination, right, of Nancy Guthrie. The one thing we know for sure is she's gone. And then we have to think along the lines, I would say, well, who gains from this? Okay, so what I'm gathering from a strange figure wearing a crotch holster, who wears it like that? Especially if this is targeted, you know you're picking up an 84-year-old woman. You can keep that gun anywhere. You're going to pull it out quicker than she can react to it anyways. Why wear it on your crotch is because you know that you are going to be caught, not on video. I really don't think this guy understood what Google can do to retrieve this video, but he did know, because if he knows that that Nest camera is going to blink if someone's watching it, he also knows that the Nest camera also creates events. Every single 30 seconds that he was on that porch, it is going to create an event on Nancy's phone, a thumbnail for her to look at. With or without subscription, that is staying on her phone. The only reason nanos can talk about these timestamps or whatnot, or someone appearing, I think they saw these thumbnails. Because if they didn't, when they accessed Nancy's phone, someone deleted them. Because those don't go anywhere. They go into your notification. If you clear them, they go to a notification folder in your phone. And if you know where that is, you can see all your old notifications. So there are missing events in this case that bugs me. And to another point, which is just allegedly, why don't anybody else have the app on their phone within Nancy's circle, just to make sure that an 84-year-old woman is okay? Maybe she went outside, maybe she fell down. Why don't you have that app on your phone, especially when she also had a camera inside the house, which Nanos confirmed in those early press conferences. All her loved ones should be interested in downloading the Nest app, logging into her account just to check up on Nancy sometimes. Those people, if they exist, should have events created on their phone as well, especially that singular photo you just showed of the perp. So
yeah,
where are the events, Daniel?
that was one of the things that I was questioning about too, is where's the notification that somebody was there? And that's kind of where I was leaning towards, that maybe perhaps that 147 is the notification that somebody was there. Let's just say they switched it around. What they decided to do was is say, all right, we're gonna say that the doorbell disconnects. Let's just say it disconnected actually at 212, but and the software detected a person was at 147. That would make somewhat sense. And the text messages of somebody being out there at some point. Now, you did bring an interesting point that if you did have a Wi-Fi jammer, there may not be those event notifications that somebody's outside, because once he got into range, it may have disconnected it. Now, when he's walking on camera, it's not active. It's not active if that's the case, because it would have manipulated.
That is a signal jammer, and Wi-Fi jammer, to my knowledge, are two different things, and I use them interchangeably. Maybe I shouldn't. A signal jammer is the one that you're referencing, where it blurs out the camera, everything gets wonky. But a Wi-Fi jammer, all it does is knock out devices from the Wi-Fi base in Nancy's house. So the Nest camera, once he pulls up at 147, we're thinking, knocks off the Wi-Fi from the Nest camera. Now, the Nest camera is unique in the sense that it stores the things that it's recording until Wi-Fi returns, and then it goes straight to the cloud. That's why Google was able to get that footage, because if this was a Ring camera, they don't do that. This footage would have never been recovered. It would have already been lost. Nancy choosing a Nest camera in 2021 is great for this footage that we have, which I happen to believe will solve this case eventually, having this footage.
But if that's the case, right, that it needs to, once it connects to the Wi-Fi, then it goes into the cloud. I'm assuming he left with the Wi-Fi jammer on, and then, you know, I'm assuming he took the doorbell camera with him.
He took it with him. It's in the porch guy's pocket.
Listen. Right. When does it connect back to the cloud to upload the video?
It has to connect to Nancy's Wi-Fi. Here's a fun exercise, Daniel. So let's go back. Let's go forward a little bit, I should say. 228 pacemaker app shows disconnected from the phone. What does that mean to you?
That means that her phone was left behind and that she went far enough from the phone that she's probably at that point, her person has left the premises.
That is the narrative. There is an alternate way for that to happen. Airplane mode. Turn off the Bluetooth. Turn off the Wi-Fi on her phone. I'm pretty sure if this guy is tech savvy enough to know the Nest camera, he knows that he wants to virginize this phone. That's pretend I didn't say that, okay? But he wants to disconnect Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. This phone is just on an island of its own. He's gonna want to do that. And the perfect thing is to hit one button, airplane mode, and you will get that same alert that the pacemaker is disconnected. But because this is possible, now we don't know how long he stayed. He could have been in that house, staging, waiting for someone, waiting for something, thinking, right? Pacing around. He had so much more time than 41 minutes now to figure out how to remove Nancy from the house. And that's not something that a lot of people talk about, but I have addressed it in a prior video. And that's how you get that. So now we'll go back to how it reconnected. So it's in dude's pocket. He's inside the house. They remove Nancy. I'm going to use they. That person is a driver. His job is to take Nancy to the spot. Okay, get her away from the house. But once he leaves, he's the guy with the Wi-Fi jammer. The Wi-Fi jammer goes with him, or the guy who's still at the house turns off the jammer. Once he turns off the jammer, I don't know if he knows, but that Nest camera is going to upload everything it just saw. And that's why Google has that footage, because he's still on the property. He's going to leave later. Nancy's already gone. That is a scenario that's possible if he hit airplane mode on her phone. Now, I don't know if Pima County, once they got to the house, I'm assuming Annie and Tommaso helped them get into Nancy's phone, if they realized or not that maybe Wi-Fi was disconnected, maybe Bluetooth was disconnected from her phone. We don't know if they knew to look for that. So that's just one avenue that I've thought about as well.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. I didn't think about that. That if, you know, the other person has the Wi-Fi jammer and they leave, that maybe that's why it reconnects to the phone, the Wi-Fi. You know, that's interesting. You know, so you believe there was more than one person at the location? You think there was a driver?
I believe there was a driver. Because nobody wants to get their hands dirty. Here's the thing that I'll just say. The crotch holster guy, right, on the porch, going back to what Dr. Brucato referenced as the chef and the waiter. That guy, I believe, is the chef. because I remember my wife told me once that they don't believe that there were many people in this crime, because it's hard enough to keep one guy's mouth shut about this, especially if it's going nationwide like this. So I would say at most 2 people, at 3 maybe not. Okay, so one person, this is the chef, the guy who doesn't want to get his hands dirty, he is the driver. He's going to drive away. So now I've postured 2 vehicles on this property. So so yeah, that to me, that's the chef. That's
Interesting.
that's the mastermind right there. And I'm assuming we're going to talk about his little shenanigans, his little show, right?
Exactly. We're on the same page here, my man. So me, when I saw this, I immediately thought this dude's weird. I think he's left-handed. And I thought to myself, the crotch thing, the flowers and everything else that he's using to try to cover things. And a lot of people were saying this guy's stupid. And this guy could be stupid, but stupid usually doesn't, even though Pima County, made a lot of mistakes, stupid still doesn't usually stay, unfounded at this point with so many agencies, so many eyes, so many, journalists and things of that nature. So to me, it's like, all right, is there a purpose? Is it for function? Now, I think he purposefully wanted to be on camera, because if, most intruders exit and entry the same place. And if the back door was propped open, my thought process is that's where he wanted to exit and come out of. I personally think that he underestimated her mobility, or maybe perhaps the injury or something, is why he had to change plans and go out the front door. But, and he parked on the side of the house, so he really had no reason to come this direction. But he does.
He had no reason.
Now, if he's not an idiot, maybe it's for function. Now, I looked on my marketplace here in San Antonio. There's probably about 2 million people, maybe a little bit more than that now. How many left-handed holsters do you think I found?
I'm not going to guess that. 1?
2.
Okay, I'm close.
You were pretty close. Yeah. I found 2. If this person is not, if he's left-handed, and as he approaches, one of the things is I talked to a buddy of mine, and when he told me he's a boxer, and he's like, when you are fighting somebody who's southpaw, you have to realize that most southpaws are left-bodied, so they lean with everything to the left. They step if they're left-legged. Now, yeah, you'll have some people that are right-legged as well, but that's actually fewer and farther in between. And so this person here steps up with their left foot onto the porch, which is, maybe that's just the foot that was coming up, but they also lean towards the left. He manipulates the gun with his left hand. Now, I don't know anybody, and I've been around guns a while. I used to be a police officer, but he has one hand in his pocket, his right hand, and then he's grabbing the gun with his left hand. I don't know anybody that would grab a gun with their non-dominant hand.
Right.
And then as he approaches, he uses his left hand to block and his right hand, or his left hand lower, to manipulate the doorbell camera. Now, I don't know anybody, again, if this is an experienced, gun user, you're going to keep your hand, your dominant hand that you're going to use to pull the weapon, closest to the gun. So if I'm walking out there and I have, when I was an officer and somebody shined a light at me and I blocked it, it's going to be my left hand because my right hand's ready to pull. I'm right-handed. This guy does it backwards, right? He has his left hand ready to pull. He manipulates the doorbell camera with his left hand. When he looks for something, it's immediately down into the left. And then when he picks up the plants, it's with his left hand. And so everything is left dominant, in my opinion. And I was thinking to myself, well, maybe that's why the gun is right there. Maybe that's why he's using that holster. Because if you have a holster that fits, it's not completely easy to pull the gun out. Now, especially if you're having to use your non-dominant hand, or if you're having to draw the weapon from an unusual position. And so if you were to use the wrong holster, you can then just grab your gun, pull it out, and you're here. And that way, instead of trying to fumble with your left hand, I'm right-handed, instead of trying to fumble it and then flip it over, trying to cross draw, none of that's going to work. Here, twist your hand, you're here. You're good. You're done. And you don't give away that you're left-handed to a certain extent. Plus, people are looking at what he has in his right pocket. Some people think it's a radio. Some people think it's other stuff. We'll talk about what's in his pocket here in a minute, but it's in his right pocket. I find that interesting because when I was in law enforcement, the only thing that was on my dominant side was my gun. I didn't want to hit. I didn't want to hit anything. Trying to pull it out, any of those things. My radio, my handcuffs. I had one behind me, one in front on the left side. Everything else was on the left side. Right side was my gun. I think this guy's left-handed. What are your thoughts?
Well, for one, that gun is a prop to me. Not that it's not real. It could be fake. Who knows? But that's a prop to show that he's a gunman. That's all that is there for, in my opinion. When he walks up, like you said, right? You want your gun on the side of your dominant hand, right? But if you're gonna pick up an 84-year-old woman, you could put that gun pretty much anywhere and keep it out of sight. Who knows? Maybe a car is gonna drive by and their lights are gonna illuminate your crotch holster. Then you're dead to rights already at that point.
That's true.
So why are you wearing it like this? And you're walking in public. I mean, from where he's coming from, technically, I mean, he's had this crotch holster. If you are correct about where he parked, he had to go quite a long ways. Any car could have came up. I mean, it's 2 a.m. in the morning, but there's still people out there. And that is going to illuminate your crotch holster, your ski mask, or whatever. So him having the gun there is for the camera. Now, why do this for a video? I really don't think this guy knew about the video. He is counting on the events, for the police to look at the events, to just see that it's a gunman that is on Nancy's doorstep. And I'm pretty sure we'll touch on why he wants us to think this. It has to do with the ransom note, and it has to do with some bit of Arizona law. So, but we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah. And what do you think about him using his left hand for everything?
My initial reaction was that he injured his right hand some way. I thought it was maybe because he used his right hand to break the flood lamps, or he did something. Because it looks a bit swollen. And like you said, that right hand, he doesn't use it for much, but it also looks like it doesn't even move. Like a lot of people have theorized that maybe it's not even a real hand, and it's possible. He really doesn't move it much. He only maybe moves his thumb once he grabs the plant so that he can hold it. His fingers are still splayed once he grabs it with that right hand. So these are hurting right now, I thought in the beginning. I mean, this guy's all types of strange. And like you said, he's always leaning to the left or whatnot. His backpack doesn't look like his straps are even at that time. So he is quite the character, and that is quite the getup for what he is doing.
Yeah. Well, he definitely got dressed out there. You're not driving with a gun in your crotch, and I don't think you're driving around with that backpack. So he definitely got suited up outside of that house, 100%. And him having an injured hand, I mean, if it's recently injured, you're still going to do things. Like a while ago, I actually had broken my hand. I punched the bag wrong, and I got a puncher's break on my hand. This was probably back in 2010. Well, anywho, man, it took me a minute to teach myself to not use that hand, because for a while, just by habit, grab something. Gosh dang it! Especially shaking people's hands, I would always forget, and then somebody would shake my hand. I'm like, oh gosh, that hurt. And so I would say a boxer's fracture. Yeah, I would say that if it is an injury, it's not a recent injury. It's something that he probably would have had for him to have been so conscientious of it, and to fight the muscle memory. Because it took. I mean, and I know it's anecdotal, but it took me quite a bit to get over that, because it's just like I said, everything I just naturally did with my right hand, and this guy just kind of seems to me that it's possible it could be injured. Now, you mentioned that Arizona law and these ransom notes and things. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, because, well, let me just preface it by saying that I think this is staged, what he is doing. I mean, he is there for a purpose, but this getup is, the more you look at it, the more it ridiculous it looks for him to do all this, to kidnap an 84-year-old woman. That crotch holster is a show. It's a show. He wanted that Nest camera to create events of a gunman for a purpose. There is blood on that porch, we know later. That blood is untouched. Okay? He could have, if he knew Nancy was coughing up blood, smeared it. He could have hosed it down. He could have wiped it away. The reason why it's still there is because he wants it to be there, because that's Nancy's actual blood. Once they test it, this is starting to look dire. And then the following day, a ransom note comes in to say that Nancy is buried in nature. I think that did come from somebody in the know. Everything leads to them wanting, or he wanting, authorities to know that Nancy is dead, that there is a high likelihood that Nancy is dead, because we've heard 7 years. Now, Arizona has changed that since to 5 years to wait with no body. If she is just gone for 5 years, no communication, they are going to say she's dead. But you can expedite this process if the crime scene shows that there was violence. You have a gunman caught on camera, blood, a note. When in history has a cold-blooded kidnapper / killer, this idiot crotch holster guy, a character like him is going to send in, risk the FBI tracking him down, send in a note to say sorry? Is that what he wanted to say? He suddenly had a conscience and wanted everyone to know that she's passed on. Every single key point that I touched right there, Daniel, is for everyone to believe that Nancy is dead. And if they can get the court to agree, they can expedite the process from 5 years to as little as 2 years. So, just saying, right?
Yeah. No, I mean that's pretty. If you're making a case that somebody close, that's pretty compelling. If you're going to be making a case that that this could be because they're wanting some financial gain, and that means, I see a lot of the same stuff, and I wonder a lot of the same things. I mean, me and you are pretty close there. Me, the way I looked at it was, because I think there's another camp out there, because when we talked about it, there's a couple of camps out here where it's a wrench attack, somebody close involved, and then somebody who we don't know of, right? Somebody may be sick, psycho, somebody might have some sort of I don't know, vendetta against maybe even Savannah Guthrie. And so when I looked at it from that angle, and I looked at, this person doesn't need to come out on camera, but they do. Why? They have the gun on their crotch. Mm-hmm. What is the goal here? Is the goal to, if the goal was to get to Savannah, they accomplished it. Not only did they terrify her, as she mentioned, not only did they get to her, but they also got her to respond to them, or her, or he, or whoever they are. She actually spoke back to them. And when I saw it, I was like, we were to look at this as some sort of like revenge fantasy, something like that. I look at the flowers. I'm like, man, why use flowers? If you look at the picture there at the front, there's a reef to the left that would have covered the doorbell camera. If he was trying to knock it off, and where he picked up the flowers, there's a bunch of rocks. That's not the case. And if this guy's a tech guy, as I assume he is, I'm pretty positive he would have known that it would have only taken a little deal to poke it in there, and it would have popped off.
I'll do you one better, Daniel. You can rip it off.
You can.
If you can get a good hold of it, because I remember a commenter argued with me about that Nest camera, but I don't think she was thinking about the 2021 model of Nancy's Nest camera, which is the year that she bought it, into 22, I believe. But that version used a little screw, but mainly stayed on because it was described as a strong magnet. At any point, he could have just punched it down. He could have did anything. And like you said, there's a ton of rocks everywhere. What are you going fumbling with shrubs, right? So nothing this guy does makes any sense. And because we know it doesn't make any sense, that's staged to me.
Well, I mean, they also said something about, her being with nature, and then putting flowers there, being with nature, flowers, I thought it was a message of some kind. And I still think, I wish they would release the entire ransom note, because I think that there could be something in there that someone like yourself or myself can look at and maybe be able to see something that maybe people aren't seeing, or that maybe perhaps are maybe a pattern that we could recognize there. Because there was so many other ways that they could have done that, but no, they leave that there. And then let's just say the ransom note is real, like from the abductors. It seems like different ransom notes went out to different people, which, some persons got a sorry, some persons didn't. So that tells me that it wasn't planned out, or even before that, it seems like the ransom notes there was some inconsistencies based on where they went. So that part wasn't planned out. I think that was something, if this is legit, the ransom notes are from the persons who committed this crime. It seemed like, a full day later too, like that was an unplanned part of it. Now, who's contacted the media before? It's been BTK, it's been Zodiac. These are psychotic, these are sociopaths, psychopaths. And when you see this guy walking up to this door, knowing what he's about to do, even if he knows that nobody's watching, he's not walking up there with a sense of urgency. Even if he knows that green light isn't blinking, he's acting differently. He's acting callous. He's acting like somebody who wouldn't apologize in a letter.
Right.
And so to me, it's been, all right, is it possible that somebody could have something against Savannah and this be an easier target? Now, I when it comes to like Annie, I think somebody had mentioned to me in my Discord, they go, well, she could have been the person that wrote the emails. One, I'm a little bit suspicious about it. Like, when do IP addresses change? How often is that a change? Do you
IP
know?
addresses shouldn't change, right?
Really?
Unless you get a new service.
No, I think they change every couple of days, the IP address.
Mine doesn't. My IP stays the same. Yeah.
Well, if they stays the same, one thing we know is that that's not a they're not using a VPN if it's the same one. Because a VPN, even if you use a VPN and you put it for the same country or wherever you're trying to per se, so even if you put it in the same place, it's going to be a different number every time you use it.
Yeah, you'll get a different number then. Sure.
So that should have been extremely traceable.
The thing is, what kind of planning went into this? Months, we assume, if you could figure out how to fool the FBI. They cannot track you? I mean, it must be at something, at Gmail, most likely not. Maybe some obscure, email provider. But for it to just elude even the FBI, I mean, was it on some type of filter? Because we don't know. We're not the techie ones. So
Right.
this guy, yeah, like to your point, he is pretty techie. Okay, this bumbling idiot that we're seeing is not necessarily so if it's a show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, to fool the FBI, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it.
That's their game. That's their game, right? Tech stuff like that, especially if they get you in their view range of view. Like for instance, in the Brian Koberger case, a lot of people will say, hey, he took his own car, he turned his phone on, he did this, he did that. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what caught him. That ended up nailing the coffin once they found him, but that's not what caught him. What caught him was the DNA left on the knife sheath. Had they not gotten that, all that other stuff, he still would have done it and still wouldn't have came to him. It still wouldn't have led to his arrest. And so in this case, we'll probably see something like that as well. And so to me, like I said, I'm a little bit skeptical about the ransom notes because, well, they come from supposedly the same IP address 6 days later or 6 days apart. And to me, that sounds weird. When I Googled it, it said that IP addresses change every so often. And that tells me at the very least, he's not using a VPN, which should make this super traceable. But then the other thing is the second one comes out because like I said, somebody had sent me the message that this may have been Annie that wrote it. The second one comes out, I think it was February 6th. I think it was like the day or two after Derek was around the time that Derek got arrested.
He was arrested on the 4th. Yeah, so you're right.
Arrested on the 4th? And so law enforcement were at their house. FBI was at their house. I believe they were under heavy scrutiny during that time. I think it was Ashley Banfield who had said that she had a source that they believed very early on that Tommaso may have been involved. And so, I mean, Annie to then somehow send a second email while with FBI under her house, under her roof, it's a little bit, I don't know. How do you think she pulled that off?
Well, you could put your own text messages on a timer. You can do that. Like if you say, I don't want to forget to text my wife in an hour, you could actually pretext, set it, go send this to my wife in an hour. Okay.
Yeah, but
we could do that on a Samsung. Yeah, maybe you can do that with email as well.
Right, but it wasn't an email. I think it was like somebody went onto their website and like submitted like a form type submission from their website.
Really?
Yeah.
On the FBI's website?
No, on TMZ.
On TMZ's website?
Yeah. That's how TMZ got the notes. It wasn't like an email to them. It was like a submission, or maybe it was the local media. I had because I was curious about how it was sent in. It was email or whatnot, but it was like a submission type form.
A submission?
Yeah, like submit your tips into here, and then you enter it in, type stuff.
And they can't trace it.
Yeah, I find it crazy. I mean, especially if it comes back as the what do you call it? The same IP address. How in the heck can you not trace it? He's not using a VPN. This should be pretty simple, but an online form. Yeah. Some folks are saying that in the comment section. Yeah.
Online form. I feel like that could be so traceable unless it's really coming from outside the country, possibly. We don't know what kind of technology they have. Yeah. And so.
But that would. I mean, I think that would make it difficult, in my opinion, for like somebody that law enforcement are, if they're looking at you, for them to, it'd be quite an accomplishment of hers, in my opinion, to do without getting discovered.
Yeah, I'll say I don't think Annie wrote it. That's my thing. I don't think she's a poet and all, but I don't think she's doing that ransom stuff.
So who would do it
I
for her? Well, so you don't think that the ransom is
do it
involved at
for
all?
her.
Yeah.
I like how you slipped that in there. I maybe I'm being gullible, but I tend not to believe that Annie had anything to do with it. And that is not to say that she hasn't since garnered more knowledge. But she stays put. She's playing ball, I would say. To some extent, I almost feel that Savannah is a person with a lot of discernment. And I think because she's a lawyer, because she's media trained, she knows exactly what to say and how to appear in media. So she seems like not that her pain isn't real, but I know that well, I can't say I know, but there must be, to me, something in the back of her mind that is open to possibilities. As we know, when she did that interview with Hoda, she never cleared A&T. When Hoda brought it up, she said that there's no words. There's no words, And then she moved on. Like it's very painful for them, but she never said anything other than Annie and Tommaso couldn't have taken care of her mother any better.
Right.
And then she moved on to Cameron. There was never a definitive no, he didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. It's just something, a lot of us has picked up on, the way that she words things. And that's because she's trained. She's media trained. So I feel somewhere in the back of her head, there is an open possibility. And maybe she too is choosing to be naive for the betterment of peace and her career. Because we don't know what kind of left turn it's going to take if this comes out to be, as I suspect, an inside job. So
it could be. I mean, most, like I think I mentioned it earlier that most crimes happen like with elderly is by family and things of that nature. Somebody close, somebody that knows them, a caretaker, etc. And so somebody somewhat knew the house, knew some information. Like I said, I strongly suspect that this person was well aware of the doorbell camera and its functions and if somebody was watching, etc. And I mean, it goes to a lot of planning. And then, just kind of sticking with the ransom notes, though, buried with nature sounds weird. I mean, it's not, she's with God, she's passed on.
Or we buried her.
Right.
She's buried somewhere. Why the flowery language, right? Why a lot of people are assuming that AI wrote it. I mean, if AI wants to be that imaginative, I guess, but you have to put in like a prompt to get something like that. Did they write in, make sure this like proof of death kind of letter is poetic? Did they write that prompt for AI to do that? So I'm not really going with that angle because even still, like I said, that person would have to have put a prompt in to make AI that creative.
Right.
So AI is going to just say she died shortly after and we buried her. That's it. So
right. I mean, your point sticks out the most because I was like, why even send it? But there's the only
why even send it?
Yeah, why even tell anybody that she passed? And then the biggest thing as well is if this was for financial gain, right? If this was solely for money, Savannah and her siblings came out and said, "Hey, we want to celebrate our mom. We want to pay," and then they ceased conversation.
Yeah, it was never about the money in terms of ransom. It had to be something with the disappearance of Nancy that someone benefits from, whatever it is. It could even just be resentment. It's possible. If this is elimination, they just needed Nancy out of the picture for whatever reason that I hope we will find out in the future. Because can you imagine, Daniel, if this went to trial? That and who is on the stand, that will be our cinema. I mean, we'll be glued to our YouTubes, I guess.
Yeah. This case is going to be, it'll be, if there is an arrest and it gets to trial, the defense team has some things to work with what we know. Now, obviously, depending on what type of evidence that they get from the suspect, because, you have the evidence you have before you have your suspect, and then you have the evidence after. And typically the evidence after outweighs what you had before. For instance, like in the Brian Koberger case, they had his advanced timing record. Well, they didn't even have that. They had his GPS locations that showed that he turned his phone off and turned it on. But that was it. They had that he'd been in the area, I think, about 11 times. By the time that they arrested him, that was in the PC affidavit. What the PC affidavit was written was before his arrest. After his arrest, they had his phone. What they were able to tell was not only did his phone not just disconnect from the network at that time, was that he had turned off the Wi-Fi, turned off locations, turned off, he put it in airplane mode, and then shut it off. He had done all these movements, so it wasn't something that was accidental. It was so much more information, and that's going to be the case here as well. Once they find somebody, depending on how long it takes, because the longer this takes, the likelier that more evidence is going to get lost or destroyed or written over if there's cameras, etc. So if they were to get something sooner than later, they might have, access to like their location. Their location could show them at a Walmart, somewhere at some point in time that doesn't appear in their financial records. So then, you look up the video camera there and you find out, hey, look, there he is there. Shoot, he bought a backpack and a mask and all this other stuff with cash. That's why it's not in his financial records. But if you don't have his phone, you don't get his locations in time, etc., you lose all that information. And so it depends on how soon they get him. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, this makes me think about what I saw today on the interview room. I caught the part where Big City Dan said there are people called hikers, and they are pretty much the homeless people that live there. Now, the reason that they're called hikers is because you can pay them to do what you need done. So if Walmart is part of the equation, this person would probably be in the know of that part of Tucson where these hikers are, because all they want is enough money for their next fix, right? What is it, $5 maybe? Send them off to Walmart and to buy your murder getup, right? Buy your crotch holster or whatnot, all in cash, and bring it back. So if this was well planned or whatnot, they're figuring out somebody else to go get that outfit. I don't think that person is going to walk physically into Walmart or even order it online to be delivered to their doorstep. So I thought that was an interesting fact. So
no, you're right, and it's interesting. Now, I want to bring up something that you had done, that you were showing, and I think it's very interesting, and it has to do with the possible face of a porch guy. You have an interesting picture here that you drew out. And one of the things that you had noticed, and well, can you tell people how were you able to first and foremost come up with so many details of his face?
Well, that I'll give credit to a lady named Marsha. She left me a message and told me to do the strangest thing. She said, look at the porch guy video again, but take out your phone, turn it to camera, and start taking snapshots from the phone of my monitor. And she said that I'll see different angles and details or whatnot, which is which is a fun exercise, I will say. But I didn't get anything. I did see different angles, but I didn't get anything I would consider important out of that. But because she led me down that path, I was wondering if I could play with more levels on my Photoshop, like with exposure and gamma or whatnot, which is the levels that I played with to get what you're looking at right here. And when I played with it, I realized, good Lord, you can see his nose. You can see shadows. You can see highlights now. As before, you couldn't see anything. And so we know that because of the light reflecting off the infrared, that's why his pupils are white. So I just drew where it is white, where his pupils are, where is the beginning of his, I guess, his brow or his eyelid. But the main thing was that nose, because you can see what kind of nose that is. People are telling me that's called a Roman nose. So this character, I would think, has a Roman nose because that bridge of your nose is bone. And so you are going to get a good depiction of at least the half, right? And the other part is compressed. But you could still see the tip of that nose. And I was excited. I'm going, wow, okay. And I, give many thanks to Marcia for leading me down this path of looking again.
Yeah.
And I was blown away when I saw his ear, Daniel. I've never noticed that the little indentation of his ear there, and it kind of even sticks out. Now, my drawing might not be true to how his ear looks. It looks like a boxer's ear, the way the things I found, but it's kind of bunched up right there.
Yeah.
And when I turned up the gamma and saw those highlights, I go, we see his cheekbone. We can see his cheekbone. So we know that if he has a mustache and a little bit of soul patch, which most likely is the beginnings of maybe a goatee or a full beard. So I didn't go as far as to complete the beard because that's not enough information or whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, and the peaking of his eyebrow, I just drew from where that was and just made it could be thicker, could be thinner. This is what we can get, but everything here is stacked on top of data.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I noticed, and I thought this was excellent, and I was like zooming in and I was looking at everything, but one thing that I noticed is up here, there's a little bit of a hump, right? Where the forehead is. It's punched up, it goes up and around, and it kind of sticks out over here. I was looking at some bald guys. Theirs kind of stick to their head, especially up here. And where this hump is pretty close to where a hairline would be. And so I wondered if this guy had, hair. And so I kind of went a little bit further with it. I don't know if you've seen this, but I threw some hair on the guy just to be, just to see what he looks like. The nose also stuck out to me. One thing that I noticed, I know you mentioned that it's pressed down, but this is JLR and he's wearing the same, I'm gonna mute him. He's wearing the same mask. And look at his nose when he turns to the side. And I don't think JLR has a particularly large nose. But when he turns to the side and you can see his nose, this doesn't like push down very much like that. You can still see. Let me see where I can get him where he's kind of turning to the side. Should happen here in a second. He's going to look over to his left and you'll be able to see his profile of his face. And
JLR is quite the character.
Yeah, he is. This is one of the few. There he is.
Yeah.
As you can see, this guy's nose. I mean, I would reckon to say that it looks even bigger than what it looks without the mask. Would you then now think maybe perhaps when we look at this image here of this guy's nose, and maybe he has a smaller one?
The thing I would say about that is he has a big head.
It's true.
The ski mask that he is wearing is it's more tight than JLR is skinny, right?
Yeah.
So I would just say that this guy has a pretty big noggin in comparison. So maybe, and maybe the material is a lot thinner than what JLR has. There's could be a lot of reasons. But I feel like that nose is probably true to form besides the tip. We don't know what the tip looks like.
I asked AI. Now this is AI. You got to take
Yeah,
this
I'm looking at
for its word. But I said, hey, can you make it real? Can you make it look real? And if it was a Hispanic person, and this is kind of what it came up with, which I thought was weird because
so basically it's you.
That's what
told
people
AI
say.
Are you trying to give yourself away?
I think it looks more like him, but and obviously it's not him. But he's got a smaller nose. He's got the hairline kind of the same. I mean, I don't know. Now, again, I don't think Carlos did this. I think he's been cleared. And so, but, I think law enforcement may have been doing some of the similar things that you were doing to try to figure out what this guy's face may look like. And maybe perhaps that's why they went with somebody like Carlos. His
eyes were very compelling. I remember I made the mistake early on of doing overlays. Now, I don't believe in overlays anymore because so many people fit the overlays. And I would suggest to anybody who wants overlays, because I've been asked to do more overlays. And I was like, I've gotten to the point where overlays is the wrong way to go. What you actually have to do is piece together certain characteristics. As a whole, it's not going to work as well. But if you piece together certain characteristics here and there, because we're dealing with a wide angle lens at night, we're dealing with artifacts of the video, and we're going to get things that are wonky. But if we deal with like specific characteristics, like a left eye as opposed to both eyes, we start to get somewhere, I feel. And just to do a straight overlay as people have been doing, I think that's a disservice in a way, because you will get a lot of people that's going to fit, and that's not good.
No, I completely agree. You don't want to do any overlays, although I'm about to show you one here in a second.
I'm sorry, I went through all that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. One of the things I did notice is that if the eye position in the head, this guy's ears is lower than his eyes. Would you agree?
Yeah, from what I could tell, but like I'm saying, like that's we can see, and I'm not sure if my lines were correct. I was just following whatever the details were. Oh, I see.
Now, this guy's nose also has that little bridge that you're talking about.
The Roman nose.
The ears also a little bit lower than his eyes. Now, I don't really want to look at the overlay, to be honest with you. I'm more interested in just his face. Now, he has hair as well. And, his nose isn't too large. He's also got the goatee and stuff. And again, this guy's been cleared. I'm not saying he has anything to do with anything. From what I understand, he's been cleared. Oh, actually, have they cleared him? I know they haven't said. Have they said anything about those two guys, Carlos and Daly, or they've just left it?
They just vacated them as suspects, pretty much. Yes.
That's crazy. Now, again, I'm not saying it's them, but I think that we can kind of see like they're looking for a specific type of person, probably Hispanic male, etc. Would you agree to that?
I would just say in the beginning, they were doing the right thing. Maybe it's just unfortunate that certain people get picked up because of tips, because I'm pretty sure they didn't get inundated with that many tips in the beginning until rewards were offered. So Carlos, I have this interesting theory about Carlos. I don't know if I'm gonna, I guess I could say it, but I don't know if I'm gonna get him in trouble with his mother-in-law. When I watched his mother-in-law's interview about her take on everything, I felt that she was lying. But it's not to say that Carlos is guilty, but I think she turned in her own son. That's what
You think that may have been the tip?
yes, because they told him it's because of his eyes, and his eyes are similar, right? They're nice and perky, pretty eyes, and I think the way she was acting on camera felt like she was the tipster to me, and hopefully Carlos doesn't get in trouble for that. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, you know, when you look at the shape of the head and the drawings and the lumps where they're at, you know, I can see why they're going in that direction. Do you believe that that is 100% a man that we're seeing on the camera?
Yes. I know a lot of people believe that it's a woman, but it's also a lot of people that believe in the Annie angle. So if you know that I'm not with the Annie angle, then yeah, I'm not going with a woman. And nothing about it except maybe a few frames where it looked like a woman, facial wise.
Yeah.
But of course, I'll never rule it out, you know. But I'm not leaning towards a woman. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite there either. There's some interesting things that people have pointed out. You know, the gait, the fact that this person walks like on a line. You know, when they step onto the porch, when they actually walk on that line, on the grout line, and so it's interesting. Also, the footsteps or the footprint of the shoes themselves seem kind of small, but I think this guy could be a small guy.
5'9",
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 5'9", 5'8", but yeah, I mean, maybe he's a little bit smaller than that. And so I don't know. I do see where some people think that it could be female, but the shoulders seem like broad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's because of Annie's actual shape. I mean, it's not to say that Annie looks like a man, but she does have physical features body wise. You know, she kind of have narrow hips, you know, and maybe a more barrel chested kind of figure that I think people want to go that route. If she had like crazy hips, are we talking about Annie? Probably not, you know, so I think that's what people are seeing there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to talk to you about the blood stuff. You know, I was looking at this image here, and I strongly suspect that that's aspirated blood up here at the top, you know, which is an indication that she was close to the ground. She was coughing. She was facing forward. Some people think that maybe two people were carrying her. I don't think so. If two people were carrying her, she'd be facing up so that there wouldn't be that aspirated blood. I also think that this is a shoe print here. This is a shoe print here. And this is the same shoe print. Kind of follows the same line here. Yeah. And I think that these steps are fairly small. Given the blood drops, they're 90-degree blood drops. There's not very much directionality, so the person moving was moving very slow. I think that Nancy was walking here. What do you think? Do you think she was carried out, or do you think she was walking?
It's when she's on the porch, I would think that she is walking. She's being escorted out via gun or whatnot. But we have to explain the blood and why it's not smeared any further. I'm thinking she's being attacked when she's on the porch. Like, if you're being robbed, you don't expect to be taken out of your house. You accept that you're being robbed and just take it and go. By the time she reaches the front door, they're taking me with them. We don't know how much fight she has left. Maybe she just went crazy, right? I mean, they're going to try to keep her quiet. They got a hand on her mouth at least, right? So on that porch, what that blood tells us is that she was bleeding. So possibly she was attacked on that porch. Maybe she got hit to stay quiet, as gruesome as that is to picture. Now, you think that's a shoe print. I actually think that is the blood transfer of a pneumatic wheel of possibly a hand truck. Now, the reason why you only see one of it is because Nancy's on the hand truck and she is still bleeding. So one drop of blood lands on the tire, right? I know it's much because these are things that are unproven, but we have that. You think it's a shoe, I think it's a pneumatic tire, but definitely what we can agree on is that is transfer blood. Okay, that is not organic, right? They didn't just spill on there like that. So whether it's a shoe, whether it's a pneumatic wheel, we get the sense that this is where Annie is coming out. But we also have to factor in, why isn't it more sloppy? And there is a part of me that even wants to say that they are holding Nancy at a certain degree to create these blood droplets directly from her. Because there's people that say syringes, maybe, you know, like this was all staged in that manner. I do believe this blood is coming from Nancy. But if we are going along the lines that they want authorities to see this blood, that's why it's there. And why didn't they just destroy it?
I mean, this is outside, so I think that, you know, inside you can mask yourself with the walls and things of that nature from the outside world if somebody drives by. Being out here to clean up this mess, if somebody drives by, you're, you know, again, you know, him crawling around, walking around there, yeah, you're going to be in a pickle anyways. But you know, out here, you've already got her. I'm assuming she's already in whatever vehicle, because you would have had to have put her in the vehicle, then come back to clean up.
Right. And so you're saying this is haste. They're feeling the panic.
I wouldn't say the panic, but I would say that at this point they have to get out of there. You know, she's obviously, in my opinion, I think she's walking based on the steps. Now, with it being a wheel, it could be, except I would expect that the distance between each one of these to be consistent because it's on a wheel. And when you look at this, from here to here is a lot smaller of a distance from here to here. Yeah.
Well, so I would say at some point that hand truck is being lifted because of the steps, right? You don't want the hand truck to just fall onto the steps. Now, I also have to explain because, okay, there's a theory of mine that gets a little bit more complicated than this. Yeah. The blood that has been aspirated and the blood drops are different from the appearance of the transfer blood. It almost feels like this picture was taken maybe on February 2nd. The blood is probably 2 days old. And from what I read about blood drops, the younger the blood, the more red it's going to be, right? I mean, that's common sense, I guess you could say. Right. Now, this goes back to why the Nest camera reconnected with the Wi-Fi and why I tend to believe that you can easily hit airplane mode on your phone, leading me to be able to say that the culprit stayed in Nancy's house longer than we think, because that will just create that alert that the phone is disconnected from her pacemaker and he's still inside the house. That blood was aspirated earlier because there is a universe, as weird as it is and hard to believe, that Nancy opened the door for the attacker at 2:12. Now, who would she open the door for, right? She would open the door for somebody she knew, or, right? If this guy is all about costumes, who's to say that he doesn't have another costume as a policeman? And so you got a policeman banging at your door at 2:12 in the morning. We all assumed that Nancy was asleep, but what if Nancy was awake? A lot of people stay awake. She lives alone. Maybe she's enjoying her YouTube or whatever, and there's somebody banging at her door. If she sees a police officer outside, then I guess we have to say, does she open the door? if she sees somebody outside that she recognizes, I think she will open the door. So that's
But
I'll
to
just
me
leave it at
that yeah, that turns into the entry point, and then and this would be the exit point. The only problem I have with it is that the back door was left open.
Yes,
Like,
both
how
were
does that?
propped open.
Yeah, how does that play into the theory? Why would they prop open the doors if they made entry? They've got her there at the entry point, which would make sense as to why the rest of the house doesn't seem disturbed. You know,
Right, pristine as they say it, right?
right. So then why go prop open the back door?
Part of the staging, I guess you could say. From the way I thought about it in the beginning was exactly the way that you presented it. If you see a back door that's being propped open, a gate that's being propped open, you assume that that's how they got in and expected to get out. So what stopped them from going out the back way? One was a dog, right? But here's the thing though, if she opened the door and she is attacked at the door that left the aspirated blood, they're taking her back in, I'm thinking, because there is a possibility that there is something on Nancy's phone, because nothing was taken that we know of. But what if it is as simple as deleting a text message, something incriminating within that thread? And some people have speculated that maybe she was doing something with her will. Maybe she's changing an inheritance of some sort that needed to be stopped or whatnot. Okay, so we're going into the realm of speculation in that,
Right.
but and I want to bring everybody back. Okay, so that's just my own
Right.
many different ways of thinking. But if we go on to the facts, I mean, she was taken out the front door bleeding.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the rest of the house. So to me, I struggled with the timeline. I've struggled with how long that the person was out there. I suspect that, given the fact that what it appears to me, as far as the DNA comes in, is that they don't have anything concrete like DNA left on a knife sheath, like in the Brian Koberger case. You know, they have something that they know was left by the perpetrator, and so what it tells me is that what they have is a bunch of unknown DNA that could have been transferred in a number of ways, and they're hoping that they just find the needle in the haystack that happens to be the suspect. Because I mean, Nancy got into an Uber. We can all agree on that, and then she also, you know, I'm assuming that Uber driver had other people in that vehicle. So how much DNA did she transfer on her person just by getting into the Uber? You know, and how many of those, pieces of DNA has been transferred that they now have to cross off the list, et cetera. And so to me, that's kind of where it's been. And the fact that he had a mouth light on him, the fact that we know he touched certain surfaces, I don't understand how they don't have a DNA profile of his. And if they don't, did he clean up? Is that what's in his backpack? What do you think?
He's not going to be able to clean up that mat. That is the most appalling thing of this whole case, because if you look at it now, if you have something in your mouth, you're going to salivate, right? That's just a function. That's just a human function, to eat. So there's a lot of spit on that mat outside that they never took for weeks, I think it was, until the FBI finally took it, and they took the nest bracket. It took a long time for a lot of things. So we know we're dealing with, well, at least we know now, we were dealing with rookie detectives that haven't had much time in the field, I guess you could say.
I agree with you there. I think that was 100% true. There was so many mistakes made, so many. We got a few minutes, if you don't mind, a few more. Let me pull up some questions and stuff that are in the live chat, and then
awesome.
We'll see how that, we'll do that. So we got Mike H1242 saying, is porch guy with a backpack same as no backpack guy? I think so. There was one image that I hadn't brought up yet. Let me pull it up. I brought it up to Miss Kaufendaffer last night. Let me pull it up. I think it's the same night. One of the things that I think a lot of people are saying is that if it was the same night, there's different shoes. And let me pull up. There it is. This is the one I want. So this is an image where he's turning around, and at this point you can see where the pant legs go up, and you can see the dark area underneath where these shoes would be at. And again, I think this guy is prepared to run. I think he's looking at I think he did that. I think he pulled his pants up in preparation for running. And I think that's why we see more of his shoe here. But you can still see the black here, black there. I think I have
Though it is interesting that he was able to find that. Though also there's no the bottom, the sole of the shoe is different, isn't it? Because when it reflect back black to us, which it doesn't,
don't know.
right? In the solitary image,
I don't know.
It
So
seems-
like
Mhm.
I think the backpack is black, but it looks very light compared to the jacket. So I know that the gloves are black, or I'm assuming that they're black, and they look very dark.
yeah,
So the gun pouch, I think, is a darker in color, but it looks lighter. So I would say that we should be cautious about what we're seeing as far as the shades, because they may not be accurate.
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's just way too many artifacts in the video to say anything for sure. I mean, people are seeing a car in the background, which I haven't been able to see yet. They've even seen Nancy in the lights on top, and I can see where they would think that. But I'll just say I'm not there to believe that she's reflecting on that light. So
No. And then here's the interesting thing too. One of the things that I had brought up was that if law enforcement and FBI, as soon as they got this image, they went out and they put it out there. Getting another image from another night earlier on, whether that be a day or a week or 2 weeks earlier, I think would be difficult. The other thing is, Mark the Shark, he was on my channel, and he was out there, and he's done videos with drone footage and stuff.
he's done great work.
He actually got a drone to come in here and then turn around and look out. And what I noticed is that this is a house back here with the lights, with these 3 arrows that are being pointed at, right?
Yeah.
So we are to believe that, and it's I mean, would you believe that? Would you be able to say that there's multiple rooms with lights on?
Which one? Which arrow are we looking at?
This
The
is
one
the same house.
furthest back?
I see light here, light here, light here, light here. That's like
Okay.
multiple rooms, right?
Right.
So if this was on 2 separate nights at a very early odd hour of the night or in the morning, we would have to believe that this guy came over and just so happened that the house in the background had the same rooms with the lights on.
Well, I'll just say, if it's 2 a.m. at night, this could be just a pattern of leaving the lights on because 2 a.m. everyone's asleep. So maybe these are timed lights, that just stay on just to scare away like guys like this guy, right?
Mhm.
So I would say I wouldn't take that too much, just me personally, but I can see where you're going, that if that is a room that's occupied by somebody that's working, but I'm thinking those are outside lights that just flick on at night, like we have at my house as well. And if you take a picture of my house at night, it always have the same lights on at night. So
Well, isn't there like a light pollution thing out there?
I think so. I mean, this is coming from an infrared light. So if we're to look at his eyes, I mean, it's really glowing. So that light might be lower than we actually think from the Nest camera.
Yeah. So just to me, I mean, I just look at this house in the background and I'm thinking to myself, it's a mighty big coincidence if these aren't, on an alarm, that the exact same lights are on when this guy is visiting Nancy's house at this odd hour. I just think it's a huge coincidence. So that's one of the things that I think that probably also points to it. And also the likelihood of law enforcement being able to pull that quickly. Maybe now, maybe a couple of days afterwards. Yeah, but they, as soon as they were able to pull up the image of him walking out, they put it out there as fast as possible. I'm not necessarily certain that they're going to be able to pull out the video of him walking up there and a picture or a still image or a video of another night, roughly around the same time, and enough time to put it out there in a tweet. I'm skeptical of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would be too, because if you don't give us a timestamp, then how does people who look at the moon feel about this? Have they said anything about time frame, or if it's the same night, if the moon should be in this direction? Since we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Do they have any opinion on whether this is the same night or not?
Yeah, he says it's the same night based on the lights in the background and some of the stuff there. That's, in fact, the guy, the CSI guy that sent me this is Steve. He's the one that did this, and he actually has a video where he like shows it. And he minimizes it, like this light right here. The one that I'm pointing, that's actually not a light. That's a window. That's a reflection. And what it's reflecting is the moon. And so if it was January 11th, there wasn't a moon out that night. So it wouldn't be reflecting anything. And so that reflection is on there on both this image here and on the image with the guy standing there. And again, his posture is weird. He's got his left foot forward with his right arm forward, right foot back, right arm back. That's a stance most people are using to get ready to move, not a stance, while they're walking. I would venture to ask people to walk that way with see how funny you look.
Yeah, no, I never thought of it that way, but now that you mentioned it, I can't unsee it. He looks like he's about to bolt once any sign of danger or whatnot.
Which is different than what is.
Oh, if it's the same night, Daniel, what time would that be?
Maybe that's 147. Like I said, I think maybe they flipped them around, and this is at 147. This is him.
Camera disconnects.
Yeah, maybe they're misleading that information. Maybe this is the moment that somebody is captured on camera at 147. Because here's the thing. That 147 is important because you want to establish a timeline, so that way when people are looking in their cameras that they're looking for somebody around the time, around this time. And so you would want to put out there, even if there was a notification on Nancy's phone, they have her phone, they're going to be able to retrieve that, of when somebody appeared on the camera. And you would think that law enforcement would want to put out the earliest time frame that they know that somebody was there. And for them to do it this way, I think that's when, and again, when did the timeline come out? It came out early. So I think that they did this on purpose. I think they flipped it around. That way, if somebody came forward, they could ask them, around what time, what did you get? What did you do when you got there? Did you go straight and disconnect the camera? And if they say yes, then it's not the guy.
That would be smart.
And the only reason you do that is if you don't have a lot of information or evidence, and it's what it sounds like in this case that they don't.
Yeah, well, we know Nanos doesn't. If we could do a little more Nanos, he doesn't. So.
Steelers fan comes in with 5 gifted memberships. So does Sirius. Collector Montaski comes in with their membership. Great job, Daniel. Let's get this party started. How's T doing? Daniel T is a friend of mine. He had a stroke. He's doing a lot better, guys. He's actually talked to him the other day. His conversations, they're slow right now, but he's going to get a lot better.
Is he part of your show?
He's not. He's just a really good friend of mine for the longest time. He's been on the show. He's a musician, and so he's been on the show. I've interviewed him for his music and stuff like that. And then I want to say about 2 months ago, he ended up having a pretty bad stroke, and it's unfortunate. He's self-employed. He's a musician, so now he's not working and things like that. And so it's been kind of tough. I have a link to his GoFundMe, guys, if you guys want to help out with that. That's in the description. Monks, love every.
I'll be sure to help.
I appreciate that, man. That would be great. Thank you. Yeah, I did a whole video on it. I performed on my guitar and stuff. It's probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. But I used to be in a band with him. I was the guitar player, the bass player and stuff. And
You were the bass guy?
I was the bass. I played the bass. Now, I know that there's some interesting things going on with this. I'm not.
Do you have the shoulder lean of a bass guy? So I've heard that when you play guitar, because of the strap or whatnot, you tend to lean a little bit because the strap is on your left shoulder, right? If you're right-handed. So do you have a lean?
I don't. I don't, because I wasn't one that played a lot. So I played bass on his band, but it wasn't because I was a bass player. What ended up happening was I was more of an acoustic player, and his band had a situation with their bass player, and he asked me, "Hey, do you want to come sit in?" I was like, I mean, I know the chords, so I can play. And so I went in and I played, and they were like, "Dude, do you want the gig?" And I'm like, "What happened to your bass player?" And they're like, "Oh, he quit." And I was like, "Well, when's the gig?" And they're like, "Tomorrow night." I was like, "Oh, crap. How many songs I need to know?" It's like 30. I was like, well, I'm going to need a book. I'm going to need to be able to read the music while I'm playing, but I can do it. And we did, we rocked it out. I did about 4 shows for him. And then he went on to West Texas. He moved to Midland, and then he came back, and then we got together again, and I started playing a little bit more. So it wasn't like a full-time gig with the bass. And so I don't have that. But I do understand why somebody would, because the dang guitar is heavy as heck. So if you were somebody that was playing bass for a long period of time, I would say that you might have that. Is that what you're thinking when you see this guy leaning to like this?
He's leaning the whole time.
He is. He is.
It's a very awkward lean too. Like he can't not lean or something. Even from the moment he steps onto the camera to the moment he goes pick up the shrubs, he's always leaning to the left. So might be something, might be nothing. Who knows? It might.
Before we end it, I'm going to go through these. I only have a few, but before we end it, I want to get your opinion on something. Okay. We have Sherry Flores with 20 Drunk Turkey Show memberships. Miss Long with a member. 50 Drunk Turkey Show memberships. Man, you guys are rocking tonight. Thank you guys. I appreciate all of you guys. The Graham Jam comes in with the newest member. All right. Monks and Drunk Turkey, I shared to each of you a very important pic with some hidden images. I have shared with many YouTubers, but nothing is being done. I may have seen your email. I saw it just before the show. I'll look at it a little bit closer, Kim. I'll have to check it out. Thank you, Mary.
I'll check it out.
And I'm almost done. We got 2 more. I assume A and T are in Italy living their best life. I don't know. Did they leave? Are you aware of that?
There's no way to know that.
Okay.
I don't know.
So Twin Pearl comes in with 999.99 ZAR.
What's a ZAR?
I'm not familiar. Let me know what a ZAR is. Please ask Monks to analyze the front of Annie's card. In the center, there is a predator, perhaps a jaguar, with a small bird on its head, looks like a canary, and flowers surrounded those 2 creatures. Why is the cat's nose blue? Is the predator male? That's
interesting. I've seen that picture. It's a very odd picture, to say the least. If I guess Annie or maybe her son Omo painted it, it could be hand painted. I'm not too sure from the picture, but I guess it would be interesting if they were the ones that created the image. Now, other than that, if they bought it at Hallmark, I'm not sure what to read from that. So
I haven't seen the card. I have to look at it. In my Discord last night, I had one of my members ask me, I guess because Annie's the only one that wrote a card. Is that correct?
It appears to be Annie because she says mommy, mom. I mean, I just did a video about the card and analyzing the contents of the body of the letter. And the main thing I would take away from that is the letter is inclusive. The body of the letter is including everybody that loved Nancy. From Savannah to Cameron, whatever. Until you get to the end, where this has to be an afterthought, because the handwriting looks different, the penmanship looks different. So I almost feel like someone came in and said, I'm just going to write our names, Annie, Tommaso, and Omo. at the end there, which made the card exclusive.
Right.
Nobody else. We're not talking for anybody else, just us. Which, if that is the case, which I'm not saying it is, it's just interesting that the handwriting changed. Then I feel like someone is, because why is there a card in the first place, right? I think Chris McDonough brought that up, and I agree. Why did you make this card in the first place? You can go up there with flowers and be done with, right? You wrote this whole thing there for your mom, for us to read. This is for the public to read, right? Another display, you could say. And if someone did come in at the end as an afterthought and just excluded everybody else, I almost feel a resentment in a way. Like, no, we're only going to talk for ourselves, because that definitely is an afterthought. That the signatures at the end. That's what I would take away from that, besides Annie being a poet, right? Using things like ashes and scorched earth. That's kind of dramatic, you say.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I'll be 100% honest with you. I haven't read it. I need to, because I'm not sure what's in it to comment on it, but it's interesting. Do you think, because this was asked to me last night, that maybe perhaps she was asked by law enforcement to make the card? I don't think so. What do you think?
I mean, I don't see why they would, unless they wanted to tug on the heartstrings of a cold-blooded kidnapper.
Well, my member kind of alluded that maybe perhaps law enforcement wanted to compare her writing style to what was on the ransom note.
Yeah.
But, I'll be honest with you that if I thought this was some sort of trick or something that law enforcement did, I think they would have asked all of the siblings to participate and to write something, because, asking one to do something is kind of tipping off that you're doing something. You know what I'm saying? And what does it hurt to ask all of them, even if you're only suspicious of one? And then also these are individuals that are talking to each other. So if you're that suspicious of her, you're going to want to not set it off. Because I mean, if she's like, all right, yeah, I can write it, and then she's going to call Savannah and she's going to call her brother and be like, hey, did y'all get told to write this as well? So it didn't jive with me. Now,
yeah. Of course, Annie would be wondering, wait, why are you asking me to write a card? She'll want to know why. So what is the reason that an FBI agent would give, Annie about writing this card? What's the purpose? What's the goal of writing this card? And I can't imagine one. I wouldn't go along the lines of comparing writing styles.
Right. I mean, if it was me, if I was investigating this and I wanted to see that, I would just tell the entire family, like, hey, there's a lot of eyes on you. They're thinking you guys are involved. We have a memorial up front. Sometimes the media or the public will look at when family members don't participate in the memorial as suspicious. You might want to do something and encourage them to do, a card. But I'm going to encourage them all so that I don't seem like I'm isolating one. So that way I can, make her as, what's the word I'm looking for? Comfortable without realizing that I'm onto her. You know what I mean? And so I don't think that's the right approach. I think that you would look at it and compare it after she wrote it regardless, just to, cross your T's and dot your I's. But
there's plenty of poetry they can look at from Annie. Yeah. So why do they need her to write this card? So that doesn't jive, really.
You know what the weird thing is too, like, because some folks are saying that it could be a bad translation. Natural and nature in Spanish are pretty close.
Okay.
So if they tried to say she died of natural causes, it could be it could be translated weird. Just kind of, possibly.
But they said buried in nature. So it's not buried in natural causes.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And so, just kind of one of the words that because I think it's like a Z. It's like a nature and natural, or It's like a couple of letters different. So I didn't know if maybe there was some sort of bad translation or etc. But here's the other thing. So if we were to assume that let's just say that the theory that the family might be involved in this because of financial gain or whatnot. One of the problems I have with it is this guy's behavior.
Yeah.
Because if this is Tommaso, let's just say, let's just theorize that. What is this plan, right? This plan is that he's going to, make this look like she passed away so they can get some financial gain. I don't think he's experienced. This would probably be his first time doing something like that. And I think there would be some nerves. I think there would be some behavior that we would see on camera here that would have been indicative of that. The way this guy acts, there's callous behind it. There's a calmness, almost an experience behind it that I'm not seeing there from somebody who would be committing this crime. And if it was somebody who was like a friend of Tommaso or a family member, they would just so happen to be friends with a psychopath that would be acting this calm and comfortable to approach. I guess that's possible. Maybe they hired somebody, but if they're hiring a professional that is experienced, there's usually a paper trail. There's contact, there's information. Like, for instance, this Derek guy, they got him, they've arrested him. I'm sure they have his cell phone. He had contacted Tommaso. So I would assume that would have been their means of contact via text message, or call, or however it was that they got in touch with each other. They have his phone. I would assume that they would see a couple of things. They would either see a history or a pattern of contact, or they would see an area where there was a lot of things that were deleted, kind of like in the Brian Koberger cases. He had factory resets, he had all these other stuff. And if that is the case, then I would be leaning more towards this guy being involved and not really giving him a plea deal right now to go and plea for whatever it is that he's pleading out to. And so what are your thoughts on how calm this guy is relative to, the theories that if this is a person that's doing this for the first time, does it jive with you?
If it was months of planning, possibly. But I mean, what was it, Maureen O'Connell? When she said that the first instinct that she saw was that this guy was high. There could be liquid courage. There could be, Tucson, there's rampant drug use, right? Maybe he just did a little something and he's good, Maybe he took an anxiety pill. You never know. So he's coming up here, and I agree, he's awfully calm. Now, if we're to go back to, say, the Tommaso angle, like you were mentioning, I don't think money would be the prime motivation. If family is involved, that's where I would believe resentment is the motivation, that life would just be better without her as part of the equation. And if it just so happens that we inherit $1 million estate, so be it. But there has to be a mix of both, I feel, in this situation, because to do that to somebody, to kidnap her, to not consider, the rest of the siblings' feelings or whatnot, it's you had to have some resentment that's been brewing for a long time. And I'll just say it because I've said it in the beginning in a early video as well. Just because she seems nice doesn't mean that she wasn't prickly with some. And if we think about our own lives, who gets to us more than family? Right?
No, you're correct there. It's a troubling case. This is why I keep all options open, my man. When I look at it, I don't discredit anybody's thoughts or opinions on the case, because at this point, I think it would be even okay if you, or if me, or if Chris McDonough, or if Dr. Bucato, or the doctor that I have on, Dr. Jamie Bona, if any of us got things wrong, I think it would be normal, because we don't have everything. So it's, it'd be different if we had all the information and the evidence, et cetera. I think we'd probably all be able to narrow down probably to the same conclusion. But because there's so much information that we don't know, I think everything's on the table. You know?
All we have is breadcrumbs, right? Not enough to make a sandwich. So,
exactly.
But I mean, you know what? Real quick, I know we're probably running on, what is it, 2:15, but I think we should talk about Kalela just a little bit.
Okay, let's talk about Kalela.
Because he's one of the more compelling figures in this case, and he is definitely a person that committed a crime. Okay. Now, to the extent of what that crime is, I guess we'll figure out on July 2nd. And if it concerns the Nancy Guthrie case, that'll be interesting for all of us who are watching right now. Now, I also want to paint you a picture of Kalela from all the research that I've done, okay? And to do so, I'm going to have to tell you about Hana Kobayashi, okay? She was this 30-year-old girl, 2024, I believe, gets on a plane to New York or something, goes completely missing. Have you heard of her case?
I have not.
Hana Kobayashi, she was, it was a viral case in 2024. Gone. Everybody's looking for her. I believe she's based in Los Angeles. And they think that she's the victim of a kidnapping because they have footage of her getting off a plane and just, going ghost. So they did this search. I forgot how long it was, maybe a couple weeks to a month or whatnot. And her father, who wasn't a part of her life that much, of course, but he felt really guilty not being there for her. And now your daughter is missing. He's out there every single day distributing flyers, wondering where she is, hoping that he can get her back and maybe start over again as a father. But as the time passed into weeks, into months or whatever, he couldn't take it anymore. He just had so much guilt. He got to maybe the 3rd-story garage in Los Angeles and jumped. So he committed suicide because of his daughter. Fast forward, guess who shows up? Hana Kobayashi. She flew back from Mexico after having a sham wedding, a fake kind of, it wasn't a wedding yet, but the whole situation is leading to a sham wedding so that a guy from Argentina named Alan could get a green card. So what she had done was get on another plane that they didn't know about, and she went to Mexico to create photos that they're in love, because you have to prove it to the American government that you are in love, right? As much proof as you can so that you can marry this guy and they can make him a citizen. So she shows up back in America. That's when she realized that the whole world was looking for her. Her case was viral. Her dad had committed suicide, and this hit her like a ton of bricks, and she just told exactly what happened. She went to Mexico to do this sham wedding, but she wound up scamming that Argentina guy of his deposit, okay, for 15 grand. So that's what she did. And that guy, Alan from Argentina, got nothing. He lost 15 grand. He got scammed by this girl, okay?
Yeah.
Her story ends here, but his doesn't, okay? So now we're going to follow Alan from Argentina. He's living in Mexico, okay? He has a Facebook page. Then somebody messages him that has heard the story and knows exactly who he is. His full name is Alan Kakashi, something like that, okay? So he's in Mexico. He gets hit up on his Facebook by another Facebook that has a very inappropriate name. And that name is Dad That Feels Good, okay? This is a troll account. Because of this, Reddit blows up because there's people following the case and they're following Alan as well. Just his Facebook. They found out what it is and they follow it and they saw this message. The message read, here, I wrote it down somewhere. Sorry, my handwriting is just as chicken scratch as Annie's handwriting. When you go read that card, you'll see that she has pretty chicken scratch handwriting. Well, he said something to the effects of, you're going to get Amon and all of them exposed. Why haven't you privated this account already? Here's the thing. Dad That Feels Good is 100% Derek Kalila. Now, the thing is, does Derek know Alan, or was he being a troll? So, why this is important is if Derek actually does know Alan, and this message of why isn't his account private, or he'll get some dude named Amon and them exposed. If he knows Alan, then he actually isn't a troll. But if he doesn't know Alan, then he is just a professional troll. He just likes to mess around.
Right.
Same thing. Now let's go bring Derek Kalila. We know that he's done this now. Oh, let me tell you this. Alan Kakashi goes missing shortly after Derek writes this message. Not only does he go missing, but Alan's Facebook gets deactivated. So whatever Derek wrote Alan affected him enough to shut off his Facebook, but then he goes missing. He's on missing people's posters now, and people already assume he's dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the fate of Alan. So we'll go back to 2026. Derek Kalila now, and he sends, of course, do you have the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. Okay. If he's a troll and didn't know Alan, makes sense. Now he's trolling the Guthrie family.
Right.
But if he was not trolling Alan and he knew Alan enough that made Alan deactivate his Facebook, then does he know Annie and Tommaso? Right? So it's whether he's a troll or whether he's knows exactly what he's texting, because that's not a ransom text, obviously, right? It's a statement. And I guess a question.
Right.
It's not a ransom letter,
Right.
at least.
Well, I mean, right. So did he ever did Derek, and now I haven't read everything in on Derek, did he provide his own Bitcoin address or anything?
I doubt it. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, because I was talking to Chris McDonough about this, and he actually had me pull up the affidavit, and he's like, did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. Yeah. I was like, you can read this two ways. You can read it as, did you get the Bitcoin? Like, we're waiting on you. We have this agreement. We've talked about this before, etc. Or, is he playing off of what TMZ had put out there? TMZ had put out there that there was a ransom note, there was a Bitcoin, and he's like, all right, did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting for it. And if the guy goes, yeah, all right, maybe he comes up with something. Now, him contacting Tommaso and Annie, I would assume then that was his normal means of contact with them. The way that he contacted them. Would you agree?
Yeah. Not that I know that, but yeah, like the way you said it, it would be the normal way that they contact them. It would be interesting though. I mean, once police, most likely, hopefully they have his phone.
I would assume
most
so.
likely, right?
Yeah.
When did he plug in those phone numbers? Right? When did he plug in Annie and Tommaso's phone number? And why did he feel it necessary to call them for 9 whole seconds?
Yeah,
very odd. The whole situation with this man is very odd. If he doesn't know any more than that, then he's just a super troll and a super idiot, right? Because he's inserting himself into a national viral case. And
I saw his picture.
With a felony. He has a felony.
I saw his picture. I don't want to judge based on anybody's looks, but he did look kind of idiotic. Now, the thing is, like, if this was a normal means of conversation with him, I would assume law enforcement would be able to connect those dots with him once they got his phone or his contact information, unless, like I mentioned before, he had like factory reset his phone and did a bunch of other stuff. However, you would see a pattern there of missing data. And I think that if you have a pattern of missing data and you have this message and stuff, I think you're more inclined to believe that this guy was more involved into this crime. And I'm not necessarily certain you're going to, have a plea agreement coming up tomorrow or next week or whenever it is. So that's the one thing that kind of makes me pause on that. But you're right. If he was involved in, not only that, but like if he was saying what he was saying was accurate about other people, then that might mean that he is involved with people that are capable of doing things that makes a person deactivate their Facebook. So some dangerous people.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what really stuck out to me, is if what he's saying is true, or at least this person believed that it could be true, it caused him to deactivate his Facebook. And
Daniel. Oh no, go ahead.
That's huge. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's huge. I think that's a huge thing, that he might be connected to people that are capable of doing things that would scare someone.
Speaking of connected, if I don't know how much you know about Derek Colella, but if I were to tell you that we can pinpoint Derek Colella in Tucson, would you be shocked?
That'd be crazy. Is he there? If you
not,
can,
I'm not talking about how they extradited him to Arizona for whatever reason, but I'm talking about 2017 placing, and before that, placing Derek Colella in Tucson. That would be crazy to you, right?
That would be interesting. He's from Los Angeles, right?
He's from Hawthorne. Yes,
Hawthorne.
Los Angeles. Yeah.
And so,
But
does
if
he
you
have
think
family?
that's crazy, no. He has a band called Secret Mutilator, which I feel is only him. I only see him as Secret Mutilator.
Yeah.
But me and another YouTuber, Sleuth's Intuition, we don't know each other, but this is the power of the internet. He showed a screenshot of it's not the flyer, but just a date that Secret Mutilator performed in Tucson. Now, I wouldn't take that for anything, right?
Yeah.
But I found his promoter. I found Secret Mutilator's promoter, a fella named Mojito.
Mm-hmm.
Mojito performed at a place called the Fly Trap, which is at the time, a goth bar where performances happen and Lord knows what else. Okay, in 2017, Mojito is there. Mojito is the promoter for Derek Colella as well, from Los Angeles. Mojito has gone to Los Angeles and Colella has gone to Tucson to perform. So they are buddies, okay, for sure. So that links him to Tucson, guaranteed, because I went into Mojito's Instagram. I scrolled for maybe an hour because this guy posts nonstop, and I found it. I found the flyer from, I believe, 2013, where Derek Colella performed in Tucson with Mojito in bold and wicked kind of writing. But that wasn't enough. And this is just an aside because I haven't connected it to a T, but I went into Early Blacks. You know Early Black, I'm sure, right? That's Tommaso's band. They too performed in 2017 at the Fly Trap. Guaranteed. On that, the same week, I believe it's the same week that Mojito performed at the Fly Trap. So that's what connects them, not completely,
right?
But they performed at the same venue within the same month at least. So there is a possibility. It's a small crowd of goth music. Technically, what Early Black is kind of a punk rock, almost goth, and their album is called Love and Murder or something. I've been meaning to go and look at some lyrics for Early Black's music, but I haven't gotten to that yet because I've had a headache deciphering their poems. So I'm still recovering from that. So
That's an
there's your
interesting connection. That's interesting. That is
Yeah.
an interesting connection, one that you can't overlook, now, I'm assuming, Tucson being kind of big and things of that nature, the music scene, like I mentioned, I was with my buddy Daniel. I played in other bands. Yeah, the same genre. I mean, me and some other bands that played the same, that were coming up, playing in the same venues, we all knew each other.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. Yes.
I
think they all knew each other. Whether it's fishy or not, I mean, that's for authorities to figure out. I mean, if I could figure it out, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
please, FBI, figure it out. So
Yeah. I mean, I would be lying if I said that wasn't true. And so that is true. I knew not every band, but we knew, like, majority of the bands. We all ran in. It's a small world. We would all end up at the same places. Some festivals, like out here in San Antonio, we'd have, Oyster Bake or Poteet, or some of the Fiesta down on the Riverwalk, and we all end up meeting up with each other. I mean, even across the state. Here recently, me and my buddy Daniel was out in Midland, and then I have another buddy of mine named Robert. He has a band called Kohler Lane, and they both knew the same guy who was out of, like, Amarillo. So, and Texas is huge. It's not a small state. And so that's true. I would be interested to see if they kept some sort of connection, now. That's interesting. I'd have to put that in my back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do more homework, I mean, I'm not promoting myself, but I'm pretty sure the videos can explain it better. If you watched Catch 22 on my list, and if you watch Connected on my list, those two videos will connect Kalela to everybody, to Early Black, to Mojito, with receipts. So, more than just words, you could actually see it, because I scroll through people's Instagrams to make this connection. And it's a loose connection to Early Black, I will say, that them performing at the same venue, and that's it. But everything else is, like I said, like I said to you, or I asked you, would you be surprised? Would it be shocking if you knew Derek Kalela was in Tucson before the kidnapping? And you said it was, which was to me as well. When I first heard it, I was like, what? Of all the places, you were in Tucson. So
no, it's definitely interesting. I would say that it would lead in the direction. Again, there would be a few things that we'd have to add to it to seal the deal, so to speak, to make it, more compelling. But it is extremely interesting, that they could possibly know each other. And, I'll have to see what happens at the, when it comes to the plea deal, right? If it's just to, if he's changing the plea and it's to get a lower sentence, etc. And it's not because he's diming on anybody or turning on anyone, then I'm gonna be a little bit more, because it's kind of like this. It's like when somebody gets investigated, like back to the Idaho case, because that's the one that I covered quite extensively. Early on, a lot of people thought that Jack DeCore, one of the boyfriends of the victims, was involved in the case because Kaylee was leaving, she was moving on, she had other boyfriends, they were out at the bar that night, and there was some phone calls that went back and forth in the early morning hours. And a lot of people were like, well, they're investigating him. And I'm like, yeah, well, we also got to take into consideration the result of the investigation. There's the investigation, and then there's the result. We can look at the accusation and the investigation and point towards there might be something there, but what was the result? And so for here, I'm going to I think it's interesting. I want to see what the result is when it comes down to this plea deal and what direction they go. Because you know, me personally, if they found a connection there and they found something with Derek and Tommaso, I don't think that the approach would be that they think this is going to take a long time to solve.
Yeah.
They agree that it'd be
That would
easy.
be a bombshell if you can connect Kalela to Tommaso.
Right.
Because then that would mean that text message was not random. Unless he was trolling his own friend, but for what? So he could do 20 years? It doesn't make sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But, you know, some people do dumb things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
No, you said you won't promote yourself. I will. So this is Monk's channel. Make sure you guys go and check it out. You won't be disappointed. I found a lot of things very, very intriguing, as the title of this show is. It is extremely, extremely informative, and I think it's well put together on all of his videos. Another little shameless plug. I'm gonna plug in my other channel. It's called Married to the Hobby. If you guys are interested in like Pokemon and things of that nature.
My wife is interested in Pokemon. Are you trying to get my wife to join your channel?
If
it's
she
gonna work.
We would appreciate it. It's something that I do with my wife as well. And
wow, so, Pokemon people. I'm surrounded by them.
Yeah, well, they're everywhere. They're coming up everywhere. You know, we ended up pulling a pretty neat card. It was I think we just got it graded. It came back at 10. It's worth like $3,000. It's insane.
And what's your address? I'm just kidding.
I'm
in Texas. Visit you.
I'm in Texas, my man. I got a lot of protection here for those that get interested.
Oh yeah. Don't be too intrigued by where you live. I'm sure. Yeah. You have a gun safe behind all that paper. Yeah.
There it is. What do you have coming up so that you can kind of plug in any videos that you have plugged up that you're going to be dropping that you want to let everybody know to be on the lookout for?
Well, I wanted to touch on Kalela's upcoming case, but I'm thinking about, because I don't want to put out things that everybody talks about, because they already talked about it. For me, it's, you know, I don't do this full time, but when inspiration hits, when I read a comment or whatnot, that's when people get videos or whatnot. And I try not to piggyback too much on a narrative, I guess you could say. I keep things open like you do. So if you watch my videos from start to finish just about the Nancy Guthrie case, you could see that I'm leaving avenues open because we don't want to pretend we know everything, right? The worst thing that we can do as lawn chair detectives is to fall in love with one theory and just, you know, die on that hill. Because we are dealing with a sad case, people's lives or whatnot. We don't want to be too reckless with what we say or whatnot. And the next thing that will inspire me, or at least on my mind right now, would be the Kalela upcoming hearing and what it can mean, I guess.
Good deal. For me, I'm going to be having Steve on the channel. It's from True Crime Web. He wants to point out a few things with like the shoes, which I watched your shoe video this morning.
Oh, cool.
It's pretty awesome, man. I actually sent it to Steve because we've been going back and forth on the shoe and what's on the inside and the design and etc. And you know, we've been looking at that. So I think that might be something that we're going to be bringing up, is his shoes and the position of the shoes, etc. And the way this guy walks, the gait, etc. So we're going to be looking at that a little bit later this week. A couple more things real quick. Twin Pro comes in again. Savannah had a very risky surgery that if it were to go wrong, she could have lost her career, therefore may have gotten extra attention and resentment. Could have been at its height. Savannah went back to work the Monday before Nancy's abduction. Odd timing. That's interesting. The timing. I still like have a, you know, again, there's multiple possibilities here. I still think that there's a big possibility that Savannah may have been the focal point, whether that be resentment, whether that be something else. I mean, I also don't discredit the possibility that this could be a fantasy motivated crime, a sexually fantasy motivated crime. There are some weird people that do weird things.
Yeah.
And so, I can't discredit that yet either, until we get a little bit more. But what do you think about Savannah's work and the timing list and stuff like that? Do you think there's any correlation?
The only thing that I can correlate with Savannah and I guess the moves that she makes,
Yeah.
Before and even after her mother is abducted, is that she is career focused. The appearance of family being close, I don't buy it. Just from the simple fact that when she described it to Hoda, that her sister told her that she's already called all the hospitals, and then Savannah felt that she needed to call all the hospitals. It felt like a bit of distrust, and it could also be because Savannah has a name. Maybe she wants to use her name to get things done. But we also have to understand that the police had already done that. The police had already called all the hospitals as well. I mean, was the hospital called 3 times that day by Annie, the police, and Savannah? I don't think so. That's all. And because they like to be portrayed as being very close or whatnot, it's I think it's just for show that she is more career oriented, because she's left Arizona behind. She lives in New York and she makes $6 million a year. She has a family. Her life from Arizona has been left behind, except for, visits. She's left her mom in the care of Annie. And that's hard. That's hard for Annie, I'll say, to be in that position. I'm pretty sure Savannah chipped in, but she's not chipping in. I wouldn't assume that she's chipping in time. She's chipping in money, possibly, right? To take care of everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're probably right.
I would say that's why Savannah moves that way. That in lieu of the question about Savannah, I don't think she has any knowledge of this stuff. If that's what the commenter is alluding to, in my opinion, it's just that Savannah, she went back to work, and that just shows you where her priorities lie, right? Work and then family, because she's addicted to the fame. I mean, she's been the darling for so long, and I hate to say it, she's aging, right? Younger people are vying for her spot. She could see the writings on the wall, so she's going back to work. So
yeah, the world don't stop spinning.
The world does not stop. Yeah,
the world continues to spin, and you got to move along with it. I agree that she is indulging in her work. It may be a product of the grief and also everything else going on with her mom, maybe even guilt for not being there and things of that nature. Some people, they'll dive into their work when they're going through things. In the end, it's a sad situation for everybody involved there, including Savannah. I mean, she lost her mom, and like I said, this guy that committed this crime, I can see it in a couple of different ways, but the way he approached that front door, not needing just to be on camera, gun on his crotch, just to instill fear. Savannah said it when she saw him on camera, that she got the fear. She was scared for her mom, that was what she woke up to. Rex Humerman, Long Island serial killer, would call his victims family members to torment them. I would agree that seeing this guy on camera and seeing him approach and him being on there was was a tormenting thing for her. And so, and like I said, he got her to see him, acknowledge him, and speak to him. That's pretty. If that was the goal, he accomplished it.
One thing to also say is, if we were to try to put ourselves in Savannah's shoes, which is not a far stretch, take away the millions, take away the media job, we're all part of a family of sorts, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that dynamic, picture ourselves. Would we blame our sister? Would we blame our brother if something happened to our mother? You know, would we blame their husband? Would we? We probably wouldn't. We'd probably want to think the best if we were actually in Savannah's position. And that's exactly what she's doing, right? So she's going to deflect. There's no way. You know, this is a situation where being like a third person looking in is easier to see. For Savannah, I think she has rose-colored glasses on for it being an insider job or not being an insider job. So that's my take on it, because I've tried to put myself in the position, say, if my mom went missing, I'm not looking at my siblings at all, right? I'll just be grieving with them, and they all have spouses as well. Am I going to look at the spouse? I'd rather not. Why think in that avenue if you are in pain, right? This is just compounding the pain. So I could see where she's coming from in that sense and why she doesn't believe it. And the memorial walk, that just goes to show you that that was orchestrated. I'm pretty sure most of us would agree with that. That was orchestrated for Annie and Tommaso because of how much heat they had. All that hugging, all that, none of that happens in normal life. It happens for the camera. So to say, stop looking at Tommaso, stop looking at Annie, this is what I can do for them. In the card or whatnot, I don't know. Yeah, so I could see it from Savannah's perspective of why she doesn't want to look that way. Yeah, so that.
You know, I've often said it, love is blind. And it doesn't mean that you're blind to, you know, appearance. It's that you don't see what's around you when it comes to your loved ones. And so, you know, that's, you know, like I said, I'm not there to say that they had something to do with it. I'm not there to say that they didn't. I'm on the fence on this case so much, man. It's one of those situations. Yeah, it's one of those situations where I see things in so many different ways. You know, I'm the kind of guy that plays like a million scenarios in my head. And you've given me 1,000 on top of that to play a million scenarios with tonight, which will probably be what I'll be doing for the next few hours, is just kind of going through everything. That's the kind of person I am. I get super overly obsessed and I start thinking about certain things and I'm like, all right, well, if this happened, because to me, like, are you familiar with the game Sudoku?
Sudoku, yeah, numbers game.
Yeah, the numbers game. So we're in that game where you know, it might look good going vertical, but it may not look going horizontal or in the same 9 square. So to me, when I look at something, I'm like, all right, it fits this. Does it fit other ways? Like the who, what, when, where, and why thing. So like, for instance, a lot of people would were suspected of Annie and Tommaso when CSAM arrived at not CSAM, the team that does the CSAM for FBI. They had arrived at their house and they were looking at their devices and stuff. What else was happening during that time? At that time, I think Derek Cavella was contacting them and they were trying to figure out who that guy was. And so they would have sent that team out there. And so you can look at it from the perspective of, all right, they have a very important high team scrubbing everything. They must be looking at them, looking at their devices as suspects and looking at where they were, looking what they're at, looking at their connections and stuff like that. And in reality, I think it was because Derek had contacted them and they were trying to arrest him, which they did fairly quickly. So they would have had to have had some investigation into it. And so that's kind of where I sit. I was like, all right, I need to process everything. But you bring up so many compelling points. It's very impressive. And I see why so many people were excited about this show and excited to hear your opinions and you and I spitballing back and forth. So I want to thank you for joining me tonight. It was really a great time.
Thank you for inviting me, Daniel. I mean, it was good. I always go into these things wondering if I'm just going to forget everything. That's why I have my little notebook here. Okay. Chainsaw Man. But anyways.
There you go.
But I'm glad. I think we did good.
I think so too. I think it was a pretty good show. I've seen a lot of positive comments in the live show, so I want to thank everybody that's tuned in, everybody that's commented. Sorry if we didn't get to your questions and things. It was pretty busy tonight, but thank you guys for joining. Please hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure you go out to Monk's channel. I have the link in the description as well, so you can get out there. Make sure you let them know that we sent you, and hopefully, you know, when maybe we get a little bit more information, we can do this again. I think this was fun. For
sure, Daniel. I feel like we've connected. We didn't argue too much, so that's a plus.
Yeah, I don't argue with my guests. You know, I try to, you know, at the end of the day, you know, like me and Jen Coffin-Daffer, she thinks this is a wrench attack. I don't agree. I don't. So we're able to, you know, still have a good dialogue and speak back and forth without even agreeing on everything. And so, you know, it's more about, you know, being open-minded and just trying to figure out what, you know, coming up with some good, solid ideas. And I think we did that tonight. But
great. Awesome.
Well, you have a great night. If you need anything from me, let me know. And I look forward to your next episode and we'll see what you put out. You have a good one, my man.
Daniel. Who are you having on next? You said it was a doctor?
I have Steve. He is a former CSI investigator. And he'll be on, we're probably aiming for Saturday or Sunday.
Okay. I'll be watching that. That's the gentleman that did the moon stuff, right?
Yeah, he did a lot of work. Yeah, he did a lot of work on the moon stuff. It was impressive, like, you know, the positioning. And, you know, I talked to Chris McDonough before our interview, and he mentioned that he did something very similar, that he sent that video to somebody at a college that does things with like positioning of the moon and stuff, and the hit came up with a time after 2 a.m. too. So I thought that was interesting.
That fits.
It does. It does. Well, you guys have a great night. Thank you again. Okay. I'll be back in a couple of days. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody. Bye.